The brown-haired warrior, held captive, looks utterly exasperated, thinking to himself how bored he is. With a casual raise of his hand, he effortlessly dispatches an enemy soldier in a brutal slash. He remains unimpressed as another soldier falls, the battlefield swirling with conflict around him. A black-haired spearman calls out to the warrior, now identified as Jin Muang, teasingly asking if he's tired, but Jin Muang scoffs at the idea. Jin Muang unleashes an attack with a golden talisman, causing a soldier to cry out in agony, "Ga!" Jin Muang smirks, telling his comrade, now identified as Jang Un, to mind his own business, to which Jang Un smiles, noting his friend's unchanging personality. Jin Muang soars through the air, brandishing his sword for a powerful downward strike. He defines himself as a wandering martial artist as he gracefully leaps over his enemy's spear thrusts. The narration explains that, upon entering the mercenary world, he becomes a whirlwind of death, cutting through soldiers with ease. Known as a mercenary wandering martial artist, he lands amidst the chaos he has created. He stares at his sword, thinking that his title as a mercenary will only last for today. Amidst the thundering charge of an army, he narrates the grim mercenary, saying that death is the only escape, yet resolves to retire after this one last job. Ag! With fierce resolve, he grips his sword, vowing to survive because he cherishes his life. Back to back, Jang Un suggests drinks later, and Jin Muang eagerly accepts, turning it into a friendly wager. Jang Un smiles warmly, a silent plea hanging between them. Don't die. Jin Muang glances back over his shoulder with a confident smirk, questioning who would even think of dying. With intense focus, Jin Muang charges into the fray, shouting for his comrade to watch his back. He becomes a blur of motion, leaping between horses and cutting down enemy riders with precision. Caw, a crow, a grim omen, lands on a sword planted in the blood-soaked earth. The crow pecks at the flesh of a fallen warrior, a grim scavenger on the silent battlefield. Cock! The crow is startled and flies away, revealing the lifeless body of a soldier below. His sword shattered, Jin Muang stands exhausted amidst the aftermath and declares, "It's over." He stands as the sole survivor in a vast field of fallen soldiers and horses. A flicker of concern crosses his face as he turns, sensing something is wrong. Jang Un Jin Muang's cry echoes as he finds his friend collapsed and groaning in pain. Jin Muang desperately grabs his friend, urging him not to give up now. He stares in horror at his hand, now slick with his friend's blood, as the grim reality sets in. Gently, he cradles the mortally wounded Jang Un, his expression filled with anguish. As Jin Muang frantically asks if he's conscious, the dying Jang Un struggles to utter a name. Soa. With trembling hands, Jang Un presses a small pouch into his palm, and Jin Muang reacts with stunned surprise. This is... Tears streaming down his face, Jang Un makes his final plea, begging him to take care of his daughter Soa. With his last breath, Jang Un entrusts his daughter's future to his friend. Jang Un lies still as Jin Muang silently holds the pouch, the weight of his friend's last wish settling upon him. His face etched with sorrow, Jin Muang accepts the burden of the promise he just made. He gently closes his fallen comrade's eyes, giving him a final moment of peace. At a grave marked for Jang Un, he pours out a drink, fulfilling a promise made in another lifetime. He offers a somber toast to the grave. Here, the drink we were supposed to share. Staring into the fading light, he recalls his friend's final request, his promise to find Sohwa. He wrestles with the weight of the promise, questioning if he is the right person for this task. His decision made, he dons a traveler's hat and sets off, determined to find his friend's daughter. His journey leads him to a bleak and impoverished village under a pale sunset. He walks through the desolate streets, the faces of the suffering villagers painting a grim picture. He continues his trek up a stone path, moving deeper into the heart of the village. A ragged village boy enthusiastically points out a small hut, telling the traveler that Soa, the person he seeks, lives there. The boy eagerly holds out his hands, demanding the 15 coins he was promised for his help. "I'll confirm first," Jin Muang states coolly, leaving the boy to wait with a hopeful grin. TSK. Annoyed at the delay, the boy runs off as the traveler approaches the hut. Inside, a weary-looking girl with brown hair looks up and quietly asks the stranger, "Who are you?" The ragged boy, Ayuk, bursts in cheerfully, and the girl, Soa, recognizes him. Ayuk explains that he simply guided the stranger who was looking for her, as Jin Muang's shadowed face reveals an unnerving intensity. The brown-haired girl, Sowa, looks up from her seat and asks the traveler, "You came? Looking for me?" Jin Muang's intense gaze meets the girls as they stare each other down in the quiet hut. Outside, Jin Muang pays the ragged village boy, Ayuk, who gratefully accepts the coins. The girl, realizing he was her father's colleague, asks with dawning horror what happened to him. As Jin Muang looks on grimly, tears stream down her face as the devastating news of her father's death finally hits her. She collapses onto the floor, overwhelmed by sobs of grief and despair. Suddenly her expression hardens and she looks up with cold eyes, demanding, "Who are you?" With all pretense of grief gone, she glares at Jin Muang, her ruse exposed. Whoosh! She explodes into motion, lunging at Jin Muang with unexpected speed and ferocity. Jin Muang reacts instantly, leaping backward to narrowly dodge her sudden attack. With a face twisted in rage, she throws a powerful punch, revealing herself as a trained fighter. Pao Jin Muang raises his arm just in time, blocking her ferocious strike. He notes her impressive internal energy, realizing a direct hit could have shattered a boulder. Unrelenting, she leaps high into the air, preparing to bring down another devastating attack. "Fall down, you third-rate scum," she screams, descending upon him with murderous intent. Pow! Jin Muang dodges aside as her fist smashes into the wooden floor, sending splinters flying. Landing safely, Jin Muang seriously considers if he should draw his sword to end this fight. As his hand hovers over his sword's hilt, he considers that drawing it would settle the situation instantly. Deciding against it, he instead smashes his own fist into the ground, unleashing a powerful shockwave. A demonic, red-eyed battle aura erupts from his body, momentarily stunning the girl with its intensity. Seizing the opening, he lands a devastating blow to her midsection. He spits up a spray of blood. Having taken a heavy toll from the exchange, he collapses to the floor, the battle having pushed him to his limit. The white-haired man, Osal, scolds the girl, Chilsal, for taking too long. From the floor, Jin Muang defiantly tells Osal to shut up, reminding him of a previous threat, which Osal mockingly acknowledges. In a flashback, Zhang Yun questions Jin Muang's reckless tactic of taking a hit to gauge an enemy, but Jin Muang explains its effectiveness under the right conditions. Back in the present, Chilsal brutally strikes the downed and wounded Jin Muang. In a separate scene, the white-haired man, Osal, grabs a different, bound woman with long black hair. Now a captive, Jin Muang has the question turned back on him as he is asked, "Who are you?" Holding a knife, the brown-haired girl, Chilsal, smirks menacingly, promising double the pain if he doesn't talk. Jin Muang calmly states he is a comrade of Zhang Yun, entrusted with his daughter Soa's future. Chilsal presses the blade to his neck, retorting that they are the ones asking the questions here. Osal, holding the bound, black-haired woman, asks how Jin Muang knew Chilsal was an imposter, to which he replies that the real Soa would have recognized him. Jin Muang smirks, explaining that because the imposter didn't recognize him, her identity was exposed. A shadowy spearman narrates that Jin Muang is also lying, pointing out that none of Zhang Yun's comrades have ever visited the village. Jin Muang sits bound and defeated between Osal and Chilsal, his bluff having failed. A smirking, unseen observer realizes that Jin Muang and his associates must also be looking for Soa. Chilsal grabs Jin Muang by the collar, demanding he reveal everything he knows about finding Soa. Jin Muang scoffs at their demand, pointing out his current helpless situation. A new man with long brown hair suddenly appears behind them, calmly announcing, "Let's end this here." Gasp. Both Chilsal and Osal turn with faces of pure shock and terror, crying out, "Number!" The newcomer moves in a blur, attacking the captors and striking a now bloodied Osal. He then lands a powerful blow on Chilsal, who staggers back, spitting blood from the impact. With another decisive strike, he sends Chilsal flying across the room. The newcomer stands poised as Chilsal and Osal lie defeated on the ground around him. Roaring with rage, the muscular Osal rises and charges the newcomer with demonic energy swirling around him. The newcomer firmly plants his foot, preparing to meet the furious onslaught head-on. He sidesteps the charge and lands a devastating counterstrike to Osal's back. With a powerful follow-up attack, he sends Osal flying backward with a massive slash of energy. The attack carves through the floor, sending debris flying in a chaotic explosion of force. Gasp! Chilsal lies broken on the ground, coughing up blood and looking on in terror at their new foe. Osel stands bloodied and defeated, realizing in horror that his technique was broken by a supreme expert, while Chilsol lies defeated in the background. The long-haired newcomer looks down at the defeated Chilsol, who tells him to just kill her. "Is dying your wish?" he asks. Calling him a crazy bastard, Chilsol smirks defiantly, only to be startled when he casually pokes her in the forehead. The long-haired newcomer watches dispassionately as Chilsol, sent reeling from the poke, slams her head against a wooden pillar and collapses. He looks down at her still form, questioning if she is actually dead, as he hasn't even done anything serious yet. A crazed, wide-eyed realization dawns on his face as he looks up. He turns his attention away from the defeated assassins and toward the last remaining person in the room. The ragged boy, Ayuk, sits defiantly, warning the newcomer that he will regret getting involved with them. The long-haired man stares down at the boy, his expression filled with grim contemplation. Jin Wang's thoughts drift back to his friend Jang Un as he internally questions why assassins are targeting his daughter. Resolute, he realizes that to find Soa, he desperately needs to gather more information. Under the moonlight, he reflects on the assassins and a connection to Luoyang, steeling his resolve to find answers urgently. The scene transitions to a vast, misty mountain range under a full moon. A large, fortified estate is revealed, perched ominously on the cliffside. The grand, imposing entrance to the mysterious cliffside estate stands silently. Inside a throne room, a kneeling subordinate with long black hair smirks as he reports that Osal, Yuksal, and Chilsol are all dead. The shadowy figure on the throne silently receives the report of his subordinate's demise. The subordinate explains that Soa's pursuer was a tall young man who used an intermediate skill, but other details remain unknown. The man on the throne, CGWI, muses that the simple fighting style makes its source hard to trace and asks what happened next. His subordinate reports that after leaving the slums, the man erased all traces and could not be tracked any further. Though his subordinate warns that this skilled man could complicate things, SAGWI believes this turn of events is actually good. SAGWI gives the order to continue tracking him as the scene shifts to a bustling town square. Jin Muang walks through the crowd, unaware that he's being followed under the assumption he will lead them to Sohwa. The scene shifts to a tranquil estate with a lotus pond surrounded by blooming cherry blossom trees. A young girl runs hurriedly through a grand room toward a woman resting on a bed. Huff, huff. The breathless girl, her hair tied in pigtails, calls out for Lady Rue. The girl, Oka, explains to Lady Rue that a guest has arrived, and the captain sent her with a message. OKA presents a green, bird-shaped token, explaining that Lord Rue will understand its meaning. As Oka relays the guest's threat of endless consequences if turned away, the woman, Lord Rue, smirks with amusement. The scene transitions to the serene view of the cherry blossoms over the water. Jin Muang meets with the woman Nanhyang by the water, remarking that it's been a while. He greets Nanhyang with a warm, familiar smile, his face partially hidden by his traveler's hat. Nanyang looks back at him with a neutral, unreadable expression. She playfully chides him for hiding his face, asking if he's gotten wrinkles, to which he replies that he almost forgot he was wearing a mask. He gently lifts her chin, saying he simply wanted to see Nanyang's pretty face. She complains he's being too much, while he teases her for looking younger and possibly being jealous. Snap. She grabs his hand. He feigns surprise as she playfully swats him, with her noting that he's still as light on his feet as ever. Nangyang asks what business brings him here, since there are no interesting fights around, but he replies that's not his purpose. "I've stopped fighting," he declares, leaving a shocked Nanyang to question what he means. She grabs his collar, demanding to know if he truly retired from being a mercenary. He confirms it, but says he has one last contract. Nanyang concedes he couldn't be a mercenary forever, but still demands to know the real reason he came to see her. Jin Muang scratches his cheek nervously, finally getting to the point. "Get me a job." The two are now seen sitting and talking inside a tranquil lakeside gazebo. He explains that while he doesn't want to get his hands dirty, being a mercenary is all he knows, and he needs to make money. Ha Nanhyang sighs, incredulously asking what he's saying with such a shameless face. From an overhead view, he explains he needs quick money for his last contract, while she thinks about the mask he's put up. Nanyang sips her drink, her expression unimpressed as she considers his request. She calls him a cheat for his puppy dog face, but agrees to hire him for an open bodyguard position, much to his delight. Eek! He pulls her into an ecstatic hug, thanking her and proclaiming she's the only one he can count on. She shoves him away, telling him there are two conditions, and he quickly agrees to do anything as long as it doesn't involve dying. Nanhyang states her first condition with a serious expression. Do not lay a hand on her courtesans, much to Jin Muang's shock. She furiously declares that a bodyguard touching a courtesan is absolutely forbidden. But Jin Muang smirks as if her principle is no problem for him. Nanhyang presents her second condition, which is more of a request to investigate a murder case, leaving Jin Muang confused about his bodyguard role. She admits the task isn't for a typical bodyguard, but expresses her trust that he is the right person to handle it. As she begins to state the terms, Jin Muang cuts her off, agreeing to take the case, but saying he has a condition of his own. He leans in with a sly look, explaining there is just one thing he'd like to ask of her. He asks for an advance on his payment to deal with some urgent matters, surprising Nanhyang. Jin Muang scratches his neck, sheepishly admitting he figured she could tell something was on his mind. Nanhyang stares at him in silence, contemplating his uncharacteristic request. She sighs, acknowledging that there must be a serious reason for him to act this way. Whoosh. She tosses a heavy pouch of money to Jin Muang, who catches it with a surprised look. She tells him to consider it a sufficient advance payment, urging him to return quickly, as her own business is also urgent. Jin Muang thanks Lady Ru and promises a swift return, departing from the gazebo as she watches him go. The scene shifts to a quiet street in a town adorned with red paper lanterns. He arrives at a large, traditional estate under the afternoon sun. Inside a library, a bald man with a goatee sips a drink while leisurely reading a book. The man, alerted by a sound, looks up from his desk with a questioning, Jin Muang's sudden appearance and question for Gang Seokcho causes the man to spit out his drink in shock. Jin Muang reminds him they last met 5 years ago. Removing his hat, Jin Muang offers a wry, confident smile. Fwop. Enraged, Gang Seokcho screams, Jin Muang, and hurls his book, which Jin Muang casually catches, greeting him warmly. With glowing eyes, a furious Gang Seokcho leaps over his desk to attack Jin Muang. Pow! Jin Muang effortlessly deflects a rapid flurry of punches from the enraged man. Gang Seokcho yells Jin Muang while holding a book, his face a mask of fury. Tak. Jin Muang deftly catches the projectile, greeting his old acquaintance with a calm, "It's good to see you." The bald man launches himself forward in a furious, spinning leap, his eyes glowing with rage. Pow, pow, Jin Muang blocks the incoming barrage of fists with casual ease. As the book falls, Gang Seokcho lunges forward, throwing a powerful punch. Jin Muang counters with a precise, razor-sharp chop aimed at his opponent's fist. Crack! The book is obliterated as their two powerful attacks collide with explosive force. The shockwave of their clash blasts through the library, sending papers and energy flying. Jin Muang smirks, arrogantly stating he can't die, because too many women would follow him to the grave. Gan Seokcho retorts that while Jin Muang's looks haven't changed, his penchant for spouting nonsense hasn't either. When asked how he was found, Jin Muang explains that he heard about Gang Seokcho from GWAK Sam. Jin Muang cheerfully pats a stunned Gang Seokcho on the back, telling him he got a bodyguard job at Nanhyang's brothel. Fwop! Gang Seokcho grabs Jin Muang's collar, demanding to know how he dared to see Nanhyang after what happened. Jin Muang calmly pushes him back, dismissing it as a past event and a mutually beneficial arrangement. Sigh. Gang Seokcho relents, assuming Nanhyang had her reasons for accepting the thick-skinned Jin Muang. Jin Muang gives a slight smile as he sheathes his sword. Gang Seokcho laughs heartily at the idea of Jin Muang retiring, to which Jin Muang admits he didn't expect to be believed so easily. Holding up 2 fingers, Jin Muang gets serious, stating he is looking for a girl named Jang Sowa and one other thing. Gang Seokcho listens with a contemplative expression, wondering why a man like Jin Muang is looking for a child. A dark montage flashes through his mind, showing images of wounded and fallen comrades. He solemnly explains Sohwa is the daughter of his colleague Jong-un, whose last request was for Jin Muang to take care of her. Gang Seokcho seems to accept the reasoning for finding the girl, but then asks who is pursuing her. Jin Muang explains her pursuers are not ordinary, showing him something that makes Gang Seokcho's eye widen in shock. In his palm lie 2 small, snake-like objects, which Gang Seokcho identifies in horror as a ho hongak. In a flashback, Jin Muang recalls that a skilled assassin used Sohwa as bait, but they also seem desperate to find her for their own reasons. His hand clenches into a fist, crushing the memory. With fierce determination, Jin Muang declares he must find Sohwa before they do, and for that, he must learn their identity. Gang Seokcho notes that skilled users of the Hohonggak are dangerous, but offers his opinion on the matter. Gang Seokcho advises that if Jin Muang is truly retired, ignoring this dangerous matter is his best option. Jin Muang gravely agrees that he is right, but a painful memory holds him back. A dark flashback shows a terrified, wounded figure clutching a blood-soaked hand. Bowing his head in desperation, Jin Muang pleads that Gang Seokcho is the only one in Nakyang who can get him information on Sohwa's pursuers. Frustrated, Gang Seokcho scratches his head, lamenting that he's lived too long to be dragged into finding his dead colleague's daughter. Jin Muang offers to repay a debt from 8 years ago at Haseo Corridor, and with a sigh, Gang Seokcho finally agrees to help. Overjoyed, Jin Muang exclaims that he knew he could count on his old friend. Gang Seokcho, however, immediately holds out his hand with a greedy smile, demanding payment for his services. Flabbergasted, Jin Muang thinks about the audacity of demanding money for repaying a favor, but Gang Seokcho retorts that he wouldn't have accepted otherwise. With a confident smirk, Jin Muang reveals he anticipated this and presents the pouch of money he received as an advance from Nanyang. Taking the pouch, Gang Seokcho dryly comments on the job in advance, promising to work for what he's been paid. Jin Muang offers a simple thanks as he sheathes his sword. Adjusting his hat, Jin Muang says he'll be waiting and departs, leaving Gang Seokcho at his desk. The scene shifts back to Suhyang-ru, where Jin Muang now stands with Nanyang, whose name is revealed as Ru Ju-sil, asking about the incident. Nanyang begins her story, explaining that 3 days ago, there was a murder. The narration details a double homicide at a brothel, where an aristocrat and a courtesan were killed, with a young nobleman named Yu Jong-young caught as the suspect. A flashback shows the silhouette of the suspect standing over the bodies, holding a bloody knife. The problem, she continues, is that the suspect has no memory of the event. Nanyang solemnly reveals her connection. The suspect, Yu Jong-young, is the son of her sworn sister who died 3 years prior. Overcome with emotion, she explains that the suspect and his sister are like her own family, and she is certain of his innocence, begging Jin Muang to find the real killer. Jin Muang arrives at another building, where an attendant nervously confirms he is the bodyguard sent by Ru Ju-sil to investigate. The attendant urges him to be quick because the police are unhappy, but Jin Muang coolly tells him not to worry. He enters a quiet room where 2 bodies lie on cots, covered by white sheets. Eek. Without hesitation, Jin Muang yanks the sheet off the first corpse, startling the attendant as he states he'll be done soon. The attendant watches in horror, wondering to himself if all mercenaries are so unnervingly casual around the dead. Having placed his hat on the corpse's chest, Jin Muang inspects the body, letting out a contemplative, huh. After finishing with the first body, he moves to the second, as the attendant anxiously asks if he's going to examine the woman too. Jin Muang states he must examine both victims and criticizes the authorities for their untrustworthy superficial investigations, while the attendant stammers that it's problematic. Suddenly, 2 officials burst in, angrily demanding to know who is touching the body without permission, as Jin Muang turns to face them. The attendant frantically waves his hands, proclaiming his innocence to the arriving officials. An official in a red robe grabs Jin Muang's collar, but Jin Muang effortlessly twists his arm away. Grabs Jin Muang, seizes the official's arm, causing him to cry out in pain from the sharp twisting pressure. A close-up shows the immense power behind Jin Muang's clenched fist. Ga. With a swift motion, Jin Muang sends the 2 officials crashing to the floor, all while a higher-ranking official watches from the doorway. The higher-ranking official stands silently in the doorway, taking in the chaotic scene. Stunned and sweating, the official stammers, "What?" The official furiously points at Jin Muang, demanding to know how he dares assault an official. But Jin Muang remains unfazed. The official and Jin Muang face off in a tense standoff in the middle of the room. The official has a flash of realization, mistakenly identifying Jin Muang as someone named Podu Yukji I. He orders his groaning men to arrest Jin Muang immediately. Jin Muang calmly turns, apologizing for not realizing he was a government official, and introducing himself as the bodyguard of Madame Liu. With a polite bow, Jin Muang explains that he is new to the job, and is extending Madame Lu's greetings, causing the official to backpedal. Jin Wang inwardly notes that the official is now flustered, afraid that offending him will displease Nanhyang and disrupt their monthly tribute. Seizing the opportunity, Jin Wang decides to borrow Nanhyang's authority, formally announcing he is investigating the murder under her orders. Putting on a polite facade, he explains that his orders require a swift autopsy, while the flustered official weakly protests about following procedures. Jin Wang applies pressure, asking if delaying the autopsy and hindering the investigation is wise, as it might displease Madame Lu. The official grimaces. Now, with the official's reluctant permission, Jin Wang stands over the bodies, ready to begin as the two men watch from a distance. He pulls out a thin, sharp instrument, preparing to conduct the post-mortem examination. He warns the onlookers not to watch if they have weak stomachs, as the two men look on in horror. With a sharp look of concentration, Jin Wang poises his instrument, ready to make the first incision. A memory surfaces of a dirtied hand holding a single, shining ring. The scene shifts to the grand and beautiful Suhyang Pavilion. Inside, the official from earlier apologizes to Nanhyang, who graciously accepts the blame for not informing her sooner. Fanning herself, Nanhyang diplomatically states that while she doesn't distrust the government, a quick resolution benefits them all. Nanhyang vouches for Jin Wang's skill and asks for full cooperation as the official accepts a pouch of money. After the official departs, Nanhyang waits alone in the quiet room. Sigh, she leans back and stretches, finally able to relax for a moment. Her expression sharpens as she gestures for someone to approach, simply stating, "Come here." Hey, Jin Wang approaches, cheekily asking Madame Lu if she's planning to reward her capable bodyguard. Her face contorts with rage at his flippant remark. She strikes him across the face, furiously demanding to know why he caused trouble. She continues berating him for fighting officials, while he sullenly mutters that they started it and his body reacted on its own. She sternly warns him to stop acting like his old self, reminding him she has a reputation to uphold as the owner of Luoyang's premier brothel. Changing the subject, she asks if he learned anything from the autopsy. Of course, he replies with a confident grin, but adds that it's too early to say anything definitive without more investigation. He requests access to the crime scene, which Nanhyang says she can arrange through her position in the Luoyang Guild Association. Eager to proceed, Jin Wang says they should go immediately, promising it won't take long. A woman named Oxian arrives from Songok Pavilion, announcing she has come on behalf of Madame Lu. Jin Wang is immediately smitten, inwardly surprised by how stunningly beautiful the concubine from a mid-tier brothel is. As she gives a knowing smile, he inwardly marvels at her figure. He asks Oke-san if there's more to the investigation, and she hesitantly confirms his query. As they walk, he explains Nanhyang's personal investment, but Oke-san reveals a major problem. The crime scene has been completely renovated. However, she offers a lead. The discarded items were moved to the incineration yard and haven't been burned yet. She notices his odd grin and asks if something is wrong, but he quickly says it's nothing. Inside the renovated room, Jin Wang states his plan. Inspect the room, then question the attendants. He inspects the floor before turning his attention to questioning two of the female servants. His expression is grim and focused as he pieces together the information he's gathering. He asks about a particular door, which is identified as an emergency exit, before continuing his inspection of the room. Looking out the window, he realizes the victim must have chosen this specific isolated room for a reason. He begins to visualize the scene, picturing a spectral version of the female victim standing near the window. His mental simulation continues, showing her perspective as she looks out into the corridor. His analysis concludes the room's distance from the main staircase would have provided an early warning against intruders. His visualization shows the moment of impact as something shatters. He pictures an attacker bursting through the door, with the victim already poised to react. The location was chosen to buy time, allowing her to prepare for and counter an ambush. After countering the initial assault, her plan was to escape through the emergency exit and window. His deductions complete, Jin Wang stands resolute, thinking he's figured it out and now only needs final confirmation. As he looks out from the room's window, an unseen person watches him from afar. The watcher is revealed to be Oxian, her expression now grim and intense. The scene shifts to a dark, foreboding prison. Inside, the suspect Yu Zhangmyang sits alone until a sudden noise makes him look up in alarm. Jin Wang stands outside his cell, offering a reassuring smile and greeting young Master Yu. The young man stammers, asking if he was sent by his aunt, and Jin Muang confirms it, introducing himself as Guard Jin. The young man desperately grabs onto him, pleading for help and insisting on his innocence. Breaking down in tears, he sobs that he's caused his aunt trouble but swears he is incapable of killing anyone. Jin Muang calmly reassures him, gently telling him that it's all right. "I believe in your innocence as well," Jin Muang declares, his words seeming to resonate with a strange, glowing energy. He repeats his belief in the young master's innocence as a strange power glows around the boy. A dark memory flashes of a threatening voice vowing to kill someone for not paying rent. The scene reveals the nature of his power, the ability to identify murderers. Bam Jin Muang arrives at a new location where several men in blue robes look up in surprise. Tilting his hat, Jin Muang activates his power, revealing that in his eyes, murderers are visible. His special sight reveals 3 figures, 2 with a blue aura and 1 older man with a menacing red glow. A close-up shows the intense, murderous red aura emanating from the older, white-haired man. One of the men charges forward with a wild grin, attempting to grab Jin Muang's hat. Pao Jin Muang effortlessly strikes the man in the chest with his sheathed sword, sending him reeling in pain. As one man falls, Jin Muang pivots to face 2 more attackers leaping towards him. With 2 swift strikes, he incapacitates the remaining assailants. The battle over in an instant, Jin Muang calmly walks past the defeated men. The white-haired man bows, thanking the great worker, but Jin Muang inwardly scoffs, identifying him as a traitor. The disguise dropped. The white-haired man lunges with a hidden blade, screaming, "Die!" In a flash of red, Jin Muang strikes down the traitorous elder. Back in the prison, Jin Muang confidently tells a stunned Yu Jong-myung that he is not the murderer, which is all he needed to know. Jin Muang tells Oxian not to worry, but she questions how he can possibly end the investigation so quickly. As Jin Muang leaves, Yu Jong-myung reaches out from his cell, desperately pleading for more help. The declaration is made. Everything necessary has already been conveyed. Nanyang is stunned, asking if the investigation is truly over already. Jin Muang coolly replies that he's simply competent, and the case wasn't very difficult. Nanyang accuses him of being full of himself and asks if he's implying Jong-myung is guilty, but Jin Muang firmly states he is not the murderer. Sighing in relief, Nanyang asks if this means her nephew can be released immediately. Jin Muang assures her that once his innocence is proven, he can be freed by tomorrow, making it sound simple. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Nanyang takes his hand, her face flushing as she thanks him. She quickly lets go, flustered, offering a final thanks as Jin Muang acknowledges it. Nanyang's expression grows serious, realizing this case is not a crime of passion but a struggle between martial arts factions. Jin Muang agrees, confirming that Hibong, the female victim, was the actual target. He reveals the truth. Hibong was a spy for the Martial Alliance, affiliated with the Wind Bell Pavilion. Jin Muang explains he found evidence of Wind Bell Pavilion techniques on her body, and that her room was set up for an ambush. Jin Muang deflects, claiming ignorance of the Alliance's plans and ending the conversation, which infuriates Nanyang, who demands to know the killer's identity. He warns her that revealing the truth could endanger her business, and after a tense moment, she reluctantly backs down. Jin Muang lectures her that sometimes ignorance is bliss, while knowledge can be a curse. As night falls, he silently promises that she will know what is necessary by tomorrow. With determined eyes, Jin Muang grips the hilt of his sword, preparing for what's next. Standing ready, he advises an unseen person to go inside to avoid the heavy night dew. Crash! The roof above him explodes downward in a blast of energy. Jin Muang leaps into action, sword drawn to meet his ambusher mid-air. A voice from the shadows praises his sharp skills, which Jin Muang admits makes him happy. A cloaked figure, wreathed in purple energy, descends upon Jin Muang, wielding twin daggers. Jin Muang identifies his opponent's black cloud concealment technique as their blades clash in a flurry of sparks. The 2 fighters become a blur of motion as they exchange incredibly fast strikes. The shadow assassin skillfully parries his attack and counters with a swift dagger thrust toward his face. The purple-clad assailant rushes forward, a streak of deadly motion. In a sudden reversal, the attacker tackles Jin Muang, pinning him down on a bed. The shadow fades to reveal Oxian, who provocatively asks what happened to his old ferocity. She gives him a sly, blushing smile, her intentions clear. Looking up, Jin Muang smirks and addresses her by a different name. Same here. Seol Ran. Seol Ran, formerly Oxian, leans in close, confidently stating she knew he would come for her. Of course, he replies, smoothly grabbing her thigh as she shivers in response. He pulls her into a close embrace, whispering that there was no way she could have forgotten him. In a swift move, Jin Muang flips their positions, now looking down at a surprised Seol Ran on the bed. He gently caresses her face, admitting he almost didn't recognize her and that she's become even more beautiful. She calls him a smooth talker, noting he hasn't changed. He's surprised she's in Luoyang, and she explains she's been there 6 months for work. Jin Muang sympathizes that it must be tough being with the old man, but Seol Ran cheekily replies, "It's easy since he's so weak." With a sly grin, she leans in and asks him how much of the case he has figured out. Jin Muang lists his deductions: a manipulated crime scene, a false accusation, and the involvement of the Windbell Pavilion. He reveals he also knows her true identity, a key figure in the Nine Nether Mystics' 5th Division. Impressed, she praises his skills and provocatively asks if he's going to reveal everything he knows. Standing up, she expresses relief when Jin Muang states his only mission is to clear Yu Jongmyong's name. A narration reveals Seol Ran is the 5th Division leader of a major intelligence agency, and she finds it intriguing he's working from a mediocre brothel. She playfully suggests he join her faction, but he curtly rejects the idea, saying she knows better. Her demeanor turns serious as she warns that revealing the truth will bring Martial Alliance intervention, forcing them to withdraw, and asks him to yield. She offers to pay him 10 times his fee, but he refuses, stating that changing clients goes against his code of honor. Stomping her foot in frustration, she questions his newfound principles, but he calmly states it was an inevitable development after coming to Luoyang. Leaning close, she admits with a pout that his newfound attractiveness only makes her angrier. She closes the distance, pulling him into an intimate embrace. The scene transitions to an exterior shot of the grand Luoyang Prefecture building. Inside a formal court, an official announces the start of the retrial for the Song-Ok Pavilion murder case as key figures watch intently. A magistrate addresses the chief investigator, reminding him that the retrial is based on his claim of a true culprit. The magistrate sternly warns that there will be severe consequences for a false claim. Chief Investigator Zhou Hongguan formally accepts the terms with a respectful bow. Investigator Zhou begins his address, explaining that he found oddities in the employee interview reports. He recounts how only one victim's scream was heard, and how Yu Jongmyong was quickly blamed due to an alleged love triangle. Concluding that a reinvestigation was necessary, Zhou Hongguan states he requested the help of a skilled expert. Jin Muang steps forward, flanked by 2 coffins, introducing himself and vowing to reveal the truth on Investigator Zhou's behalf. He asks young Master Yu if he truly can't remember the incident, and the boy frantically swears he would never lie about such a thing. Jin Muang addresses the court, claiming his travels have given him knowledge of rare poisons. He describes a poison called Maho, which the true culprit used to poison one of the victims, making them susceptible to commands. The crowd murmurs as he explains that the poison compels its victims to obey the one who administered it. Investigator Zhou confirms Jin Muang's point, and the magistrate allows him to proceed. Agreeing, Jin Muang announces he will now examine the victims' bodies. Standing between the 2 open coffins, he states the corpses show distinct differences from typical murder victims. He reveals that Hibong sustained defensive wounds, picturing her desperately trying to block an assailant's attack. From this, he infers that Hibong had martial arts training, unlike the other victim, who had no such wounds. Stating the wounds are unusual, he begins a demonstration using a hanging side of meat to make his point clearer. He explains that an ordinary person lacks the skill to cut cleanly, resulting in uneven wounds, as a helper demonstrates. Jin Muang takes the knife, claiming a martial artist like himself can wield a blade with expert precision. He gathers his energy, preparing to demonstrate a martial artist's strike. After making a perfectly clean cut, he declares that the wounds on the 2 corpses are just as precise. The magistrate gasps in realization, and Jin Muang nods, confirming his unspoken conclusion. Jin Muang states decisively that the case is a conflict between martial artists. With a sharp look, he declares that this means the Martial Alliance must be the one to intervene. A flashback explains that as the imperial family weakened, the Martial Alliance's power grew until they managed security in lawless areas. This set the stage for an inevitable conflict between the government and the Martial Alliance. As the court erupts in murmurs, the magistrate presses Jin Muang, asking if his claim about martial artists is true. Jin Muang explains that only a trained martial artist could inflict the nearly 80 precise, bone-deep wounds found on the victims. Pointing to the accused, he declares that Yu Zhongmyong, having no martial arts training, could never have committed the crime. Jin Muang turns his gaze toward a nervous-looking official in a green robe. The knife found with Yu Zhongmyong is presented as the presumed murder weapon. Jin Muang holds up the weapon, identifying it as a common kitchen knife whose blade would have been damaged if used to cut bone. He explains Hebong's ribcage shows a wound from a precise blade, something the blunt kitchen knife could never have caused. Jin Muang states that, while the culprit attempted to fabricate the scene, they failed to erase every trace. He declares that the evidence points to a culprit trained in martial arts who used a sharp, awl-like weapon. Jin Muang concludes that this skilled killer murdered the victims, then fabricated the scene to frame Yu Zhongmyong. The courtroom erupts in shocked murmurs at the revelation of a martial artist's involvement. In the crowd, Nanyang looks on, while the young woman beside her weeps with relief. The magistrate sighs, thankful he didn't report the case to the central government, and asks Jin Muang if he's found the true culprit. Investigator Zhou turns to stare at a white-haired elder in the crowd, who nervously asks why he's being looked at. Jin Muang explains that framing Zhongmyong required drugging him, which would have been impossible without an accomplice among the courtesans. When Investigator Zhou reveals there was an accomplice at the brothel, the white-haired elder furiously dismisses it as mere suspicion. Investigator Zhou retorts that the suspicion is confirmed, recounting how he sent men to Songok Pavilion that morning, ordering them to open the doors. He announces the shocking news. Oxian, 4 other courtesans, and 6 maids have vanished without a trace. The entire court, including the magistrate and Nanyang, is stunned by the disappearance of 11 people. Investigator Zhou declares to the magistrate that this is clearly a conspiracy by a major martial arts faction, not a simple love triangle. He formally recommends seeking the Martial Alliance's cooperation to hunt down the true culprits. The magistrate hesitates under the watchful eyes of the court, feeling the weight of his decision. Making his choice, the magistrate declares the verdict. Yu Zhongmyong is proven innocent and will be released immediately. The scene shifts to a large, tranquil estate located on Qianpeng Street in Luoyang. Xiao Ren relaxes in a rocking chair as an unseen person respectfully addresses her as leader. A brown-haired woman reports that their transfer is complete and all traces have been erased, earning Xiao Ren's praise. The subordinate nervously asks if it's wise to withdraw without orders, fearing repercussions from their higher-ups. Xiao Ren confidently dismisses her concerns, handing her a letter for someone named Lord Yong. The subordinate accepts the letter with a nervous smile, bowing to her leader's command. She then tentatively suggests that, to prevent future trouble, they should kill the man who visited the brothel, Jin Muang. Xiao Ren bursts into laughter, mocking her subordinate's naivete for not knowing to fear a tiger. She explains that few in the 9 nether mystics know his true nature, and there's a reason for that. A sly smile plays on Xiao Ren's lips as she prepares to reveal the secret. She reveals the chilling truth. No one who has ever fought Jin Muang has survived to tell the tale. A grateful woman named Lady Yu presents Jin Muang with a large bag of money, thanking him for saving her daughter, Myung-ah. Myung-ah shyly looks at Jin Muang, her hands clasped together. Blushing, Myung-ah sweetly propositions him for a future meeting, if he wouldn't mind. Jin Muang leans in with a playful smirk, his flattery making Myung-ah blush even deeper. Suddenly, a monstrous cat with glowing red eyes appears as Nanyang demands to know why Jin Muang hasn't taken his reward and left. As Nanyang berates him for his flirting, Jin Muang deflects while Myung-ah gets annoyed. He tries to make a quick exit, but Nanyang calls him out for only being polite when he's in trouble. Nanyang sighs in exasperation as Myung-ah giggles at Jin Muang's expense. Jin Muang strides purposefully down a dark, empty hallway. He grips his sword, his senses on high alert for what's to come. He concludes that this threat is the work of a master of martial arts, not some second-rate group. With a flash of steel, his blade gleams as he prepares to act. Crash! He smashes through a paper door in a spray of splintered wood. He lands in a dark room, facing the silhouette of a person sitting calmly. Jin Muang's confidence wavers as he sees the unexpected figure, a bead of sweat on his face. A smirking man drinking tea greets him, chiding him for his hurried entrance and suggesting fine tea should be savored. Jin Muang retorts that he doesn't recall inviting the man into his room for tea. With a tense expression, Jin Muang sizes up his uninvited guest. The man, surrounded by a blue aura, reveals he senses Jin Muang's hidden strength and came only to talk, as Jin Muang wonders who he is. The man explains he entered secretly to avoid his wife's wrath, prompting Jin Muang to call him henpecked, which he reframes as being devoted. The man formally introduces himself as Indestructible Diamond Cloud, Zhu Xinyan. Startled, in a moment of mutual shock, both Zhu Xinyan and Jin Muang react with comical surprise. Zhu Xinyan is internally baffled that Jin Muang doesn't recognize the Martial Alliance's Luoyang leader, while Jin Muang fumes about the intrusion. Zhu Xinyan cuts to the chase, stating he heard Jin Muang was the one who cleared Yu Zhengmyung's name. A man with long, dark hair and a goatee smirks, stating that since the truth of the murders has been uncovered, the culprit's identity must also be known. He presses a long-haired man in a straw hat, asking if he knows the murderer's motive and identity, or if the Luoyang branch shared any information, but the man claims ignorance. The man in the straw hat, Gyukcho, slyly asks, "Really?" prompting the other man to explain that the government requested the Martial Alliance's cooperation, and Gyukcho should ask any questions he has. The man in the green-trimmed robe leans in with a sinister grin, questioning if Gyukcho is hiding something. His threat becomes explicit as he asks if he needs to use force to get answers, startling Gyukcho. Abruptly changing his tune, the man backs off, saying he just came for a visit and that he likes Gyukcho's bold way of treating the Indestructible Diamond Cloud. As he walks away, Gyukcho maintains his cover, insisting he doesn't know who the man is talking about. The scene shifts as Gyukcho meets a bald man in blue robes, who asks if he's found what he was looking for and offers him a drink. The bald man pours a dark, blood-red liquor into a small cup for Gyukcho. Lifting his own cup, the bald man says this fine liquor seems necessary for the occasion. He explains it is needed to mask the stench of blood that is about to be spilled. Gyukcho holds his cup and coolly asks if the man is predicting bloodshed. His sharp eyes narrow, and his fierce, glowing reflection is seen in the red liquor. Gyukcho gulps down the drink in one go. Dismissing bloodshed as nothing new, he demands information, and the bald man reveals he has located Zhang Soa. He reports that Zhang Soa is hiding in an abandoned shrine east of Monsan with an old man acting as her caretaker. Gyukcho is impressed by how quickly she was found, and the bald man credits recently tracking her through Luoyang. Leaning in, the bald man asks Gyukcho if he has ever heard of the Blood Serpent Hall. Gyukcho's face darkens as he feigns ignorance, asking who these scoundrels are. The bald man explains that 6 years ago, the Blood Serpent Hall's leader changed and began using martial arts from the Asura Blood Sect. He continues his explanation, focusing on the dark history of the Asura Blood Sect. The sect, he reveals, was the last to use the soul-sealing horn and black poison elixir, shown as tiny black snakes in a hand. Later, under a full moon, Gyukcho contemplates the connection between the grave-laden mountain and the old shrine. He looks out over a vast field of burial mounds, his suspicions aroused by the landscape. Suddenly, a spiky-haired man and 2 masked companions race up the hill toward the shrine. Muang, now in different attire, smirks from the shadows, glad that his targets have come to him. He unleashes a sweeping energy attack as masked assassins leap through the forest below. The spiky-haired man and his 2 masked subordinates are revealed as the targets of the assault. Arriving at the shrine, the spiky-haired man declares with satisfaction, "Found it." He gestures for his subordinates to enter the shrine, but they are suddenly ambushed. From the woods, Muang watches them, confirming this is their hiding place. The spiky-haired man reacts in shock as an attack comes from nowhere. Wham! He blocks Muang's diving kick, identifying himself as a bodyguard from the pavilion. The spiky-haired man's eyes glow with intense red fury as he faces his attacker. As one of his men throws a weapon, the spiky-haired man charges a powerful blue energy blast in his hands. The blast erupts outwards, but Muang deftly deflects the force of the explosion. The 2 masked men leap to attack as Muang prepares to swing a heavy mace. In a blur of motion, Muang lands a powerful glowing strike with his mace. A masked subordinate is thrown back, his attack thwarted as he stares in disbelief. Ignoring the fight, the spiky-haired man smashes through the shrine's wooden door. Thwack! Muang casually dispatches the second subordinate, sending him spinning to the ground. Both masked men lie defeated on the heavily cracked earth outside the shrine. The camera lingers on the two men, now motionless and bleeding on the ground. Muang turns his gaze to the broken entrance of the shrine, contemplating his next move. With a powerful kick, he shatters the rest of the door and steps into the darkness. Inside, he discovers the body of a man slumped against the far wall. The man is revealed to be elderly and emaciated, likely the caretaker mentioned earlier. Muang calls out the name Jang Soa, demanding she reveal herself if she is still alive. From behind a screen, a timid young woman with blue hair peeks out, nervously asking who he is. Lowering the cloth, she reveals a dirty face and wide, startled golden eyes as Muang introduces himself as a comrade of her father. The young woman, Jang Soa, stares in wide-eyed shock at the man's declaration that he is a comrade of her father. Outside the shrine, 3 defeated assailants lie motionless and bloody in the snow-covered clearing. A defeated masked assassin slumps against a heavily cracked wall, his body limp. Another masked assassin lies defeated as the scene transitions to a full moon hanging in the night sky. A masked man with long, dark hair arrives with his subordinates, grimly observing the aftermath and noting he is too late. His subordinate reports that their formidable foe has already defeated 6 of the 10 blood serpents. The leader's eyes glow fiercely as he orders his men to kill the enemy and secure Jang Soa at all costs. Inside, Muang asks Jang Soa if she recognizes him, and she confirms her father wrote about him in his letters. Suddenly, Jang Soa collapses, and Muang shouts her name in alarm. He swiftly catches her in his arms as she faints. Holding her, he internally observes her severely weakened state, lamenting the suffering she must have endured. Her hand weakly goes limp as Muang holds her, his expression filled with concern. Muang sits on the floor, cradling the unconscious Jang Soa in the quiet shrine. He glances up with sharp focus, deciding to postpone any conversation for now. Standing with Jang Soa in his arms, he draws his sword, announcing they have uninvited guests to deal with. Crash! The shrine's wall explodes inwards from a powerful external attack. A young brown-haired man with a shield on his back expertly parries an attack from a leaping masked assassin. Clash! The young man engages a masked assassin in a fierce sword fight, sparks flying from their locked blades. With a determined gaze, the young man pushes forward, stepping into his opponent's guard. In a blur of motion, he uses his sheathed sword to deflect an attack while another assassin leaps down from above. He deftly dispatches one masked foe as another prepares to strike. The brown-haired warrior leaps through the air, delivering a decisive downward slash to his opponent. Arg! The masked assassin screams as the powerful blow lands. Pow! The warrior follows up with a swift, brutal kick to the assassin's head. He coolly warns his attackers to choose their targets more carefully as he walks past their defeated bodies. Muang, carrying Soa, now stands before the shrine's elderly caretaker, whose life is fading. He gently tells the old man that his duty is done, and he can now rest in peace. With Jang Soa on his back, Muang steps outside, unleashing a wave of energy. He swings his sword in a wide, powerful arc, creating a swirling vortex of blue energy. The attack continues to build, creating a defensive whirlwind of slashes around him. He spins rapidly, his blade a blur of motion as he completes the technique. As the energy vortex dissipates, a masked assassin throws a chained net, attempting to trap him. The assassin who threw the net stares in shock as his weapon is thwarted. The net is instantly sliced to ribbons before it can reach Muang. He effortlessly deflects a volley of thrown projectiles with a flick of his sword. As one assassin shouts, "You there?" Muang blocks another surprise attack from behind without even looking. While still carrying Soa, he contemptuously bats away the assassin's sword. He grabs the stunned assassin, demanding to know if he understands who he is fighting before unleashing his power. Boom! A point-blank energy blast erupts from his hand, engulfing the attacker. The massive blast sends 2 assassins flying backward through the air. A quiet moment falls as the camera pans to a gnarled, ancient tree in the mist. The formidable, masked leader of the blood serpents emerges from the mist, standing before the tree. His face is grim, his mask splattered with blood as he prepares for his own confrontation. Muang glances over his shoulder as the last of the lesser assassins falls from the sky. Phew! He lets out a satisfied breath. smirking after clearing out the riffraff. His smirk vanishes as he whips around, his sword drawn in a flash to block a sudden, unseen attack. He mentally notes the impressive stealth technique of his new foe, as he deflects a curved blade. Muang spins gracefully, countering another swift, nearly invisible strike. He faces off against a ghostly, semi-transparent figure, blocking its attack while protecting Sowa. The masked leader, now visible, expresses his shock that Muang could block his ambush and see through his stealth. Carrying Sowa, Muang leaps across the cracked ground, narrowly evading the pursuing masked leader. The masked leader lunges forward in a furious, ghostly strike aimed at Muang's back. Muang lands gracefully, clutching his sword and keeping the unconscious Sowa safe on his back. With a flash of his sword, Muang turns to face his opponent, his expression sharp and focused. Arg. The masked leader cries out in pain as blood erupts from a fresh wound. Stunned, the masked leader demands to know how Muang could possibly see through his stealth technique. Muang calmly states he has faced far more advanced stealth techniques, and asks if this is all his foe has. The masked leader concedes that Muang is a martial arts master, one who even the 10 blood serpents could not defeat. Admitting his mistake and ambushing him, the leader suggests a truce, but Muang's stance remains hostile. Muang rejects the offer, declaring that while the leader may have started the fight, he won't be the one to end it. The masked leader panics, pleading for him to wait and insisting there is more to the situation than he knows. In a shocking revelation, the masked leader claims to be Jang-un's elder brother and Sowa's uncle. The leader announces his name is Jang Eok, the head of the Blood Serpent Hall. Jang Eok repeats his claim of being Sowa's uncle and begs the wanderer to lower his sword and listen. Muang recalls that Jang-un never once mentioned having any family, let alone Sowa. Muang coldly states that his family relations are none of his concern, leaving Jang Eok speechless. Declaring his only mission is to protect Sowa, Muang lunges, promising to eliminate anyone who interferes. Calling him a lunatic, Jang Eok frantically dodges Muang's relentless assault. Muang's eyes narrow with determination as he internally urges Sowa to hang on. As their blades clash, Jang Eok pleads for Muang to stop, but Muang unleashes a wave of blue energy, stating their lack of blood ties is irrelevant. Jang Eok grips his sword, his expression hardening as he prepares to meet the attack. He grits his teeth, bracing for the powerful blow. Jang Eok struggles to fend off the swirling vortex of blue energy unleashed by Muang. Damn it, he curses, desperately wondering why the person he's waiting for hasn't arrived yet. Muang stands over the fallen Jang Eok, coolly asking if a mercenary needs any reason beyond completing a job. Looking down at the unconscious girl, he muses that this defeated man is supposed to be her uncle, now that she has fainted again. Cradling Sowa, Muang tells her not to die, as he didn't come all this way just to bury a corpse. A quiet wind blows through the abandoned shrine grounds, now littered with defeated assassins. A new blood-splattered figure looks down at the defeated Jang Eok, calling him a disappointment once again. A mysterious, silhouetted bald man with glowing eyes looms ominously over Jang Eok's fallen body. The masked bald man watches his subordinates carry Jang Eok away. Expressing surprise to see a certain person here, he internally questions Jin Muang, wondering why he has taken Jang Sowa with him. In a lavish room, Muang watches over Sowa in bed and asks an ally how she is doing. Muang confirms to a woman in purple that this is his comrade's daughter, thanking her for calling a doctor who has helped Sowa recover. The woman, Nanhyang, reminds Muang that her help isn't free, but he retorts he won't be relying on her for long. Muang explains they must leave soon, as Sowa's pursuers will endanger her Suhyang pavilion. Nanhyang scoffs, asking if he truly thinks she can be underestimated so easily. She proudly declares her identity as the Luju who built the Suhyang pavilion, boasting of her power and connections, and dares anyone to try and kidnap a girl from her territory. Let them try. They'll regret it, she shouts, before confidently adding that Muang will protect the child regardless. Nanhyang playfully chides Muang, telling him to stay put and watch over the girl while she gives him tasks, to which he meekly agrees. Nanhyang tells Muang his skills are wasted as a bodyguard, suggesting he take on side work as a mercenary, to which he asks, a side job? She acknowledges his desire to avoid bloodshed, but reminds him that raising a child requires money. She points out that with her pavilion attracting so many influential people, he'll never be short of work. Promising to wait for his answer, Nanyang grants Sowa temporary refuge as Muang departs. Muang watches over the sleeping Sowa, contemplating his new life as an unmarried man with a child to care for. Sowa rests peacefully, her braided brown hair neat on the pillow. As she sleeps, a mysterious wisp of green energy emanates from her. The green energy swirls around a spectral image of Sowa, floating in a dark, starry void. Sowa's bright golden eyes flutter open as she awakens. Muang smiles gently at her, asking if she's awake, as she stares back with a startled expression. In a quiet room, a young woman with braided brown hair wakes up startled as Jin Muang reassures her that she's now safe. As she tries to get up, he gently tells her not to strain herself, reminding her that she nearly died. He places a comforting hand on her shoulder, as she nervously agrees. Jin Muang asks if she can answer some questions, and the young woman says she will tell him anything she knows. His eyes glowing, Jin Muang demands to know why assassins are after her, noting that Jung-woo never mentioned this danger as the girl clutches her dress. She explains it began with a huge mistake involving her uncle, which led to him hunting her and her father, forcing her father to leave her behind and disappear to protect her. Jin Muang presses her, asking what kind of mistake would make her uncle so desperate to hunt her down. Clenching her fists, the young woman confesses that her uncle discovered her secret ability. Her form becomes a dark silhouette as she explains her power. When she touches an object, she can read information about its owner. Jin Muang reels back in absolute shock at the revelation. The shadowed girl repeats her explanation of being able to read an object's history through touch. Jin Muang remains wide-eyed and stunned by her incredible power. He dismisses her claim as crazy nonsense, causing the girl to look down with an upset expression. The young woman nervously fidgets with her blanket, clearly unsettled by his disbelief. She explains that her father knew about her ability and had warned her never to tell another soul. Pondering, Jin Muang listens as she admits that 4 years ago, she was too young and mistakenly told her uncle about her power. A flashback shows her younger self sitting before her black-haired uncle in a desolate place. Her uncle smiles sinisterly as her younger, tearful self takes his hand with a hopeful look. In the flashback, the uncle leads her by the hand through a grand hall, walking toward a shadowy figure on a distant throne. She shudders, recalling her uncle tried to take her to a terrifying person, whose monstrous, red-eyed silhouette haunts her memory. She continues, describing how her father rescued her and they fled from their pursuers. Her father entrusted her to an elderly servant, sending her away while he and his men stayed behind to fight. The memory shows the servant leading the little girl along a perilous cliff path, escaping her uncle's pursuit. Back in the present, a green aura envelops her as she uses her power on a dark, orb-like object. Jin Muang connects the dots, concluding that Jung Yun came to Qinghai to meet them both, a point the girl confirms. A flicker of realization hits Jin Muang as he mutters "Dark Soul," understanding the implications if her story is true. He questions her directly, stating her father told him that she knew about Dark Soul before he died. Jin Muang reveals Dark Soul is a secret known only to him, something he never even told her father. He leans in, asking pointedly if she learned of it through her ability, and she tenses up in response. Jin Muang's intensity grows as he demands to know what item of his she touched, and to see it immediately. Pausing, he decides to confirm something else first, leaving the girl to wonder what he means. The girl looks up at him and asks if he plans to continue carrying out her father's request. A tense silence hangs in the air as Jin Muang looms over the small, seated girl. She challenges him, stating that if he truly saw her memories, he should already know what kind of person she is. A menacing, shadowy version of Jin Muang appears, taunting that taking things from a little girl is as easy as breathing and asking if she dares to test him. The girl acknowledges his scariness but hesitates, trailing off as she looks at the floor. She bursts into tears, proclaiming her unwavering belief that he would never hurt a young child like her. The dark, menacing aura around Jin Muang seems to still for a moment at her words. His serious demeanor shatters as he breaks into a wide, cheerful grin. He asks if her ability can see beyond the Dark Soul, but she admits she's too weak now, and it requires a lot of energy. She promises to try once she recovers, and Jin Muang agrees, vowing to keep her father's request. Jin Muang internally reflects that as a mercenary, taking care of his comrade Sowa's daughter doesn't make sense, and would puzzle others who know him. Sowa thinks to herself that she hoped Jin Muang sought her for her ability to recognize the Dark Soul, not out of mere loyalty to her father. Jin Muang's expression hardens as he warns Sohwa not to think he'll go easy on her if she's lying, just because she's a child. His eyes gleam with menace as he vows she will pay a heavy price for any lies. He immediately feels a pang of guilt, thinking that threatening a child makes him less than a normal adult. He sighs, accepting his hardened nature is the only way he knows how to act, as Sohwa bows her head. As he wrestles with his thoughts, Sohwa begins to speak again. Weeping, Sohwa tells him that now, he is the only one she has left to trust in the world. Jin Muang internally declares that he is no longer a mercenary. Kneeling before Sohwa, Jin Muang swears to protect her, even if it costs him his life. Sohwa blushes, thinking to herself that perhaps she can change. Overwhelmed with emotion, Sohwa bursts into tears. Crying with relief, Sohwa tearfully thanks Mr. Muang for his promise. Holding the dark orb, Jin Muang asks Sohwa where she found it. Sohwa explains she got it from a street merchant, while Jin Muang notes to himself that such an item shouldn't be casually lying around. Jin Muang asks if she saw the person who gave the merchant the orb, and Sohwa confirms that she did. A vision appears of a beautiful woman by a majestic tree, as Sohwa describes her beauty. Back in the present, Jin Muang remarks that Luoyang is a very strange town. The scene shifts to a tranquil balcony, where Nanhyang asks Jin Muang if his conversation with the kid went well. Jin Muang confirms he learned everything he needed to, as Nanhyang looks at the sleeping Sohwa and asks if he was harsh with her. Nanhyang reacts with surprise, asking Jin Muang what he means by his sudden question. The scene focuses on a line of ceremonial spears under a clear blue sky. Jin Muang looks serious, correcting himself as he asks about a woman named Dan Ri-young. Over the image of the spears, Jin Muang asks if she is now with the Chengcheon Sama clan. Nanhyang is startled by his unexpected line of questioning. A sly, knowing smile crosses Nanhyang's face as a shadowy aura forms behind her. Nanhyang asks why he's suddenly asking about Dan Ri-young, and Jin Muang deflects, claiming he's just curious. Nanhyang pokes him with her fan, scolding him for not knowing the whereabouts of someone he was once inseparable from. Standing with her back to him, Nanhyang pointedly asks if he truly doesn't know. She turns back, calling him unbelievable and questioning his sudden interest in a woman he hasn't seen. Jin Muang insists that her reaction is what's strange, while Nanhyang tells him to stop feigning ignorance. Sohwa sits up, telling them not to overreact and insisting there's no reason for his questions. Nanhyang laughs and frantically denies planning anything, insisting she's just curious as Jin Muang smirks. Nanhyang eyes him skeptically but agrees to tell him what she knows. She reveals that Dan Ri-young is with the Chengcheon Sama clan, stunning Jin Muang, and adds that the reason should be obvious. A flashback shows a ceremonial hall as Nanhyang explains that Dan Ri-young became the concubine of the clan's young lord 8 years ago. Jin Muang is visibly shaken and disturbed by this shocking news. Nanhyang laments how Young, the most beautiful woman in Gamsuk, could become a concubine, then asks for his thoughts. She explains it was a political marriage that allowed the fallen Dan Ri clan to recover their status. The two stand in silence in the room, the weight of the revelation hanging in the air. Nanhyang notes his strange behavior, and Jin Muang admits he has his reasons for asking. Shocked, Nanhyang realizes he gave Dan Ri-young the Black Shadow Pearl and asks how it got here. Jin Muang explains Sohwa had it. The pieces click into place for Nanhyang, who now understands his questions and wonders how the pearl ended up with a merchant. Jin Muang reflects that giving someone the Black Shadow Pearl grants them the right to make a request, making its appearance in a market deeply troubling. Nanhyang reveals that all contact with Dan Ri-young was cut off 6 months ago, with no word from the Sama clan since. Jin Muang grabs her, urgently asking if there's any way to find out what's happening within the Chengcheon Sama clan. Pushing him off, Nanhyang retorts that she isn't all-knowing. A sly smile returns to Nanhyang's face as she says there is a way, delighting Jin Muang. She adds that she's also curious. An overjoyed Jin Muang hugs Nanhyang, thanking her, but she coyly tells him he needs to thank her properly. Jin Muang gives her a suspicious look, asking what she means by that. With a snap of her fan, Nanhyang declares that nothing is free, and that he just unwittingly agreed to her second request. Jin Muang groans that she's so stingy as the view pulls away from their balcony. The scene transitions to a sprawling, beautiful estate with traditional architecture. Two servants walk through the courtyard of the large estate. A smiling woman announces to her clan leader that Vice Commander Nam Wei-jae has arrived from the Alliance. The clan leader, who is Nan Yang, watches as a trio of officials enter the compound. Vice Commander Nam Wei-jae and his two subordinates stride forward with grim determination. Nam Wei-jae reminds clan leader Ju of the Alliance Master's deep investment in the current case, to which she calmly replies she has not forgotten. Vice Commander Nam Wei-jae angrily confronts Nan Yang, demanding to know why she abandoned Songoku and threatening punishment. One of Nan Yang's subordinates thinks to herself that Vice Commander Nam is using this incident to weaken the authority of their GUU secret order. Nam Wei-jae furiously repeats his demand for an explanation for abandoning Songoku. Nan Yang calmly asks if he remembers the group destroyed 15 years ago, wondering why he's bringing them up now. She reveals that after the Dark Soul Calamity sect vanished, the Alliance Master ordered them to avoid its remnants at all costs. Nam Wei-jae scoffs, asking if her decision was really tied to the sect, and Nan Yang confirms it was, and then some. Nan Yang explains that her quick withdrawal prevented a direct conflict with the Martial Alliance, who are taking this very seriously. She confidently states her belief that the Alliance Master will approve of her decision. Nam Wei-jae explodes with rage, calling her excuse ridiculous and desperate. Unfazed, Nan Yang asserts that the Spectre's shadow looms over this case, and that she made the right call, regardless of his opinion. Nam Wei-jae orders her immediate arrest for making unprovable claims, as her two female guards behind her are enveloped in a dark aura. He orders his men to apprehend hers and vows to hold her personally accountable. A wicked grin spreads across Nan Yang's face as she asks if that's how he wants to play this. Her guards transform into shadowy assassins and ready their blades. Nam Wei-jae gasps in shock as his own men are instantly and bloodily cut down by the shadow assassins. A shadow assassin taunts him for his arrogance within the GUU Secret Order's own headquarters. The shadow assassin unleashes a swift, powerful strike of purple energy. Nam Wei-jae watches in horror as his subordinate is effortlessly defeated. Wreathed in purple energy, Nan Yang mocks him, asking if he really expected to leave unharmed. Her shadow guard taunts his recklessness for entering their base as she unleashes a decisive strike on his subordinate. Nan Yang smirks, again questioning if he truly thought he could leave unscathed. Terrified and sweating, Nam Wei-jae stares in disbelief at the overwhelming power. With her women standing guard, Nan Yang draws a knife and asks since when the Lord of Biyudang could judge her. She presses the blade against his throat, questioning his motives. Her face momentarily becomes a terrifying shadow as she wonders aloud if he's overconfident in his skills. Her expression returns to a smug smile as she looks down on the intimidated man. She casually dismisses him with an apology as her guards sheathe their weapons. Turning away, Nan Yang smugly states that the Lord is already reading the report she submitted. She tells him with a sly look that if he simply reports what she said, he won't face any reprimand. Nam Wei-jae rubs his neck, nervously considering the consequences if an issue arises anyway. He shouts after her, warning that her arrogance might bring trouble upon the Milyang Lord. Nan Yang laughs heartily, feigning surprise that he holds her lord in such high regard. He cryptically warns that arrogance will be punished, like a flower that withers quickly, as her subordinate listens with concern. Nan Yang's subordinate stammers a denial, flustered by the exchange. The subordinate continues to look nervous and blush under her leader's gaze. Nan Yang glances up with a confident, knowing smile. Her subordinate quickly collects herself and answers with a resounding yes. Nan Yang stretches lazily as she and her entourage prepare to leave the compound. She looks up thoughtfully, deciding she should perhaps visit a certain person tonight. The scene shifts to an elderly doctor checking So-wa's pulse as Jin Muang stands by her bedside. Jin Muang helps the elderly doctor to his feet after the examination is complete. So-wa looks down at her own hand, appearing weak and dejected. After the doctor leaves, Jin Muang sits with So-wa, who begins to speak hesitantly. She expresses her frustration, saying she needs to recover quickly to help him, but hasn't been able to. Jin Muang looks down, his expression pained by her sense of powerlessness. So-wa clenches her fist, calling her own words foolish. Jin Muang looks at her, a gentle yet serious expression on his face. Overwhelmed, So-wa cries that she's sorry for being born so weak, as Jin Muang inwardly notes her case seems severe. Jin Muang observes her with a soft, understanding look. He reassures her, revealing that her uncle and the Blood Temple who sought her have all been killed by his hand, leaving her in stunned silence. Jin Muang thoughtfully considers the implications of Sohwa's uncle leading the Blood Temple. Sohwa reacts with a gasp, realizing where his thoughts are headed. She confirms his fears, revealing her family is the direct lineage of the Sora blood sect, destroyed 30 years ago. Jin Muang is stunned by the revelation. As narration explains, the Sora blood sect was infamous for its strange and powerful sorcery. He realizes this is the source of Sohwa's extraordinary abilities and anxiety, as the narration adds that the Sora blood sect was targeted for total annihilation by the Martial Alliance during the Great War. A vision of a bloody battlefield illustrates the grim reality. If Sohwa's lineage is discovered, the Martial Alliance will hunt her down. The danger extends to her allies, as Jin Muang's goateed acquaintance, Seok Cho, thinks that the situation is far more serious than he imagined, and that perhaps ignoring it is the wisest course of action. A disembodied voice agrees with Seok Cho, admitting they have walked straight into chaos. As the thought lingers, Sohwa sits beside Jin Muang, trembling with fear. Looking up at him, Sohwa says she understands his concerns about the danger she brings. Jin Muang gently pats her head, telling her to focus only on resting and regaining her strength. He promises to protect her no matter who comes after her, bringing tears to her eyes. Sohwa thanks him with a shy smile, and he tells her not to overthink things before saying he'll ask someone named Ruju about finding a local inn. Sohwa happily promises to do her best once she's recovered, as Jin Muang, now wearing a conical hat, declares that her name is too dangerous and must be changed. He declares that her new name is Jin So-So, and she is now his niece, leaving her utterly shocked. A wide, happy smile spreads across her face as she accepts her new name and identity. The scene shifts to an opulent room where Nanhyang asks Jin Muang about the child's well-being. Jin Muang reports that her recovery is slow and will take time, which Nanhyang calmly accepts. A sharp-toothed man finds it amusing that the unmarried Jin Muang is acting like a parent, while Nanhyang listens with a fan covering her smile. Nanhyang offers to let Sohwa stay in her establishment, Suhyangru, until she is fully recovered, and Jin Muang thanks her for the kindness. As he turns to leave, Nanhyang asks if he still wishes to learn about Ayong. Jin Muang immediately confirms his interest and asks why she brings it up now. Nanhyang's expression turns serious and calculating. She stares him down with folded arms, creating a tense silence. She begins to utter the name Sama, and Jin Muang's face fills with shock and dread. Nanhyang pauses thoughtfully, considering her words. She asks if he knows the man, and a panicked Jin Muang stammers that he might. Internally, Jin Muang curses this new obstacle, wondering why this person is returning now as a vision of a past battle flashes in his mind. Jin Muang frantically feigns ignorance, much to Nanhyang's amusement. She gives him a smug, knowing look as he continues to squirm under her gaze. He stammers nervously, admitting he might have heard the name once before. Nanyang explains that since the man is the famous Azure Dragon of Changchun, it's not surprising he would have heard the name. Jin Muang forces a sigh of relief, trying to play it cool. He laughs awkwardly, attempting to act casual as Nanyang watches him. He frantically argues that they wouldn't put a teenager in the martial elite, irritating Nanyang. Jin Muang grabs her arm to get her attention, startling her as she replies that she was going to tell him anyway. The scene transitions to the silhouette of a noble lady in her attendants. A voiceover explains that as one of the 7 flowers of Suhyang, Dairyowa has a bodyguard, and the problem involves that very man. Nanyang stands elegantly, ready to elaborate on the delicate situation. Jin Muang sarcastically asks if the bodyguard tried to flirt with Dairyowa, volunteering to teach him a lesson, but Nanyang snaps back, asking if he thinks all men are like him. He reasons that Nanyang wouldn't just let something so simple happen, asking what the real issue is. Nanyang tells him he'll have to hear the rest of the details directly from Dairyowa. She offers him the job, promising insight into the Sima family, and generous payment from Dairyowa, causing Jin Muang to grimace. Now wearing his conical hat, Jin Muang begins a long, weary climb up a flight of stairs. He continues up the seemingly endless staircase, complaining about Nanyang building the pavilion so high. He finally reaches the top, catching his breath and realizing this must be the place. Standing before a grand, ornate door, he prepares to meet Dairyowa. He slides the door open, announcing himself as Jin, the bodyguard. Whish! A fist suddenly flies toward his face, stopping just short of impact. Jin Muang deftly blocks the punch, finding himself face to face with a stern-looking man. The two men, Jin Muang and the bodyguard, lock eyes with grim determination before their clash. In a flurry of motion, they exchange a rapid series of blocks and strikes. Jin Muang remarks wryly that while it's hard to see one of the seven flowers of Suhyang, this is not the meeting he expected. Amidst the fight, Jin Muang continues to mock the unexpected and violent welcome. Jin Muang counters with a swift, powerful chop charged with crackling blue energy. "No way," cries the bodyguard, shocked as he braces against Jin Muang's unstoppable energy blade. Jin Muang gracefully dodges and redirects his opponent's desperate counterattack. The bodyguard grits his teeth in frustration, thinking he can neither dodge nor block the incoming blow. Their hands collide with a resounding thud, halting the bodyguard's attack. Jin Muang effortlessly pushes his opponent back, coolly stating that while his skills are decent, he has far too many openings. The bodyguard looks up, stunned that he's the one being evaluated in this fight. He quickly composes himself, adopting a formal stance of respect. The bodyguard begins to apologize for the sudden attack, but Jin Muang cuts him off, stating he's not interested in greetings and is very displeased. Jin Muang confirms the bodyguard's name is Wei Myung-shin and condescendingly states he's here to handle a problem Myung-shin couldn't solve. Wei Myung-shin closes his eyes in silent, frustrated acceptance of the rebuke. He remains in a tense, formal posture as Jin Muang looks on. A woman's voice cuts in from behind a beaded curtain, revealing she ordered the attack. Dae Ryoa emerges elegantly from behind the curtain, taking responsibility for the hostile test. Jin Muang's expression softens slightly, surprised by this turn of events. Dae Ryoa formally introduces herself to guard Jin and bows, asking him to calm his anger. With his face cloaked in shadow, Jin Muang explains he needed to personally confirm if he was the right person for this task. Dae Ryoa explains the matter is extremely dangerous, requiring someone of exceptional skill, as Wei Myung-shin looks on nervously. Jin Muang listens silently, his expression unreadable. Jin Muang laughs good-naturedly, accepting the explanation and saying there's no helping it then. Wei Myung-shin is internally shocked, thinking that his opponent is as light as a sheet of paper. He continues his thought, acknowledging Jin Muang's martial skills are real and sufficient to toy with him, as a woman with glasses smirks knowingly. The woman with glasses suddenly appears with a menacing aura, threatening Jin Muang that he's dead meat if he has improper intentions toward Dae Ryoa, causing him to gasp. Jin Muang awkwardly reintroduces himself with a bow to Dae Ryoa, who timidly accepts. Dae Ryoa apologizes once more for the rudeness, and graciously invites him for fine tea. Jin Muang, Dae Ryoa, and Wei Myung-shin sit together around a small table for tea. Dae Ryoa calmly sips her tea, composing herself to explain the situation. She begins by mentioning the Songoke Pavilion murder case, acknowledging that Jin cleared Jung Myung's name, and starts to explain her own problem. Jin Muang cuts to the chase, impatiently asking what kind of request was so critical that it required testing his skills. Dae Ryoa pleads for his understanding, explaining that the matter is very important to both her and her guard, Wei Myung-shin. Jin Muang rests his chin on his hand, listening intently. With a pained expression, Dae Ryoa reveals that if this fails, she will be forced into a marriage she doesn't want. Jin Muang's gaze sharpens, his interest piqued by the mention of a forced marriage. Dae Ryoa looks at him with a hopeful, slightly flushed expression. She begins her story, explaining that for over a century, her Gok family ran a martial arts school in Luoyang. However, after her father, Gok Mandong, lost a duel to a wandering swordsman, the family's fortunes started to crumble. Her father endured terrible ridicule and contempt from the other martial artists of Luoyang. He lost all his disciples and tried desperately to revive the family, but every attempt failed. Her father is shown accepting a loan from a smirking man in tan robes. She explains her father borrowed money from Jin Jung-hyo, but ultimately passed away from an old injury before he could save the family. In a painful memory, a younger Dae Ryoa weeps over her father's body. She continues, explaining she joined the Suhyang Chilhwa to pay off the debts, but during the final settlement meeting, Jin Jung-hyo made an unexpected move. The loan shark, Jin Jung-hyo, smugly produced another promissory note, claiming her father had borrowed even more. Dae Ryoa recounts that the note, bearing her family's seal, was for an unpayable amount, as Jin Muang listens thoughtfully. Jin Muang astutely guesses that Jin Jung-hyo must have suggested conditions in exchange for the debt, shocking Dae Ryo with his insight. He confidently states that the condition from the loan shark was a forced marriage, which a grim-faced Dae Ryo confirms. As the full weight of the situation sinks in, Jin Muang's head snaps to the side with sharp focus. Lee Myung-shin clenches his jaw, his expression hardening at the mention of the unwanted marriage. Dae Ryoha reveals that the suitor proposed by the loan shark is a man named Yang Jae-hyun. The name sounds familiar to Jin Muang, who immediately asks about a possible connection to Gardwi. Dae Ryoha delivers the shocking revelation that Yang Jae-hyun is Gardwi's master, as Jin Muang realizes the situation just became incredibly complicated. Jin Muang correctly deduces that this tangled relationship is the reason they had to hire an outsider like him. Dae Ryoha clarifies that this isn't the only reason, leaving Jin Muang momentarily confused. The scene shows Jin Muang gesturing as he begins to lay out his conditions. Jin Muang declares he is retired from mercenary work and flatly refuses the job if it involves destroying the note or killing Jin Jung-hyo or Yang Jae-hyun, infuriating Lee Myung-shin. Lee Myung-shin leaps to his feet, enraged that Jin Muang would speak of harming his master, while Jin Muang calmly states he doesn't do that work anymore. Dae Ryoha explains to an amused Jin Muang that she had to strongly advise Gardwi against intervening himself, despite his master's involvement. She continues, explaining her fear that Gardwi's family would be endangered if he got involved. Dae Ryoha gently places her hand over Lee Myung-shin's fist, their close bond evident. Jin Muang watches them with a cynical look, dryly observing the commotion their relationship is causing. He internally questions Nanyang's true motive, wondering if he's being used as a matchmaker for the two lovers. Dae Ryoha insists the second promissory note is a lie, stating her father never mentioned additional debts, even on his deathbed, as he wasn't the type to hide things. She passionately pleads with Jin Muang to prove the note is a fake, appealing to his legendary reputation for skill and exposing injustice. As she implores him, Jin Muang internally reflects on the complexity of a scheme involving a forged seal from a martial arts family. He concludes that this tricky case requires someone with his particular skills to verify the truth. A thought bubble from Jin Muang confidently declares that this is a job only he can handle. A sly grin spreads across Jin Muang's face as he reminds them that his services are not cheap. He lays out his terms, a 15 yang down payment, but if he succeeds, he wants a different kind of compensation that isn't money. Dae Ryoha smiles, readily accepting his unusual terms. With a clink, she tosses him a pouch of coins, sealing the deal, as he confirms he will take care of everything now. Jin Muang inspects the payment pouch, ready to begin his investigation. He begins his inquiry, asking Dae Ryoha how closely the seal on the forged note resembled her family's original. Dae Ryoha lowers her gaze, carefully considering the details of the forgery. She explains that her family's seal is too intricate for a perfect forgery, leading Jin Muang to realize that if she was fooled, it must be an expert's work. Jin Muang asks if they know of any forger in Luoyang with the skill to create such a flawless fake. Lee Myung-shin reports that he has already asked around, and no one currently in Luoyang possesses that level of skill. Jin Muang keenly picks up on the word currently, asking if there was such an expert in the past, causing Lee Myung-shin to grimace as he confirms it. A memory of a dark, shadowy figure haunts Lee Myung-shin. The scene shifts back to Nanyang's pavilion, where a furious Jin Muang reveals the forger died long before the note was made, demanding to know why she hid this. Nanyang teasingly asks if he should calm down, clearly amused by his frustration. Jin Muang erupts, complaining that the job feels less like an investigation and more like being a mythological matchmaker for separated lovers. Nanyang smiles slyly, asking if he'd prefer a simple assassination request instead. Jin Muang grits his teeth, his face twisting in annoyance at her goading. To sweeten the deal, Nanyang offers an extra incentive. Upon completion, someone named Yoon Seol will introduce him to a person of interest. Jin Muang turns, surprised by this unexpected new condition. He reluctantly accepts the job with newfound resolve, while Nanyang watches with a satisfied smirk. Jin Muang sarcastically vows that Yoon Seol and Wee's relationship won't be broken, suggesting he just tie them together with a red string of fate. He sternly reiterates that he no longer accepts kill requests and will not solve this problem with violence. Nanyang's demeanor shifts as she seriously asks if he has investigated a man named Yu Duk-sam. She stands elegantly, fan in hand, her expression now entirely focused on the case. Jin Muang is taken aback by her sudden seriousness and the introduction of a new name. Nan Yang turns away slightly, her profile lit by the window as she speaks. She confirms that based on his reputation, Yu Duksam certainly had the skill to create the forgery. Jin Muang theorizes that there are two possibilities. Either the forger gave the seal to Jin Jonghyo before he died, or something else happened. Nanhang turns back to him, pressing him with her fan and asking which scenario he believes is more likely. Throwing his hands up in a gesture of demand, Jin Muang insists she tell him everything she knows about Yang Ilcheong, Wee's master. Nanhang begins briefing Jin Muang on Yang Ilcheong, revealing his age and his moniker, the Flying Dragon Spear. She continues, explaining he is the influential owner of the 50-year-old Flying Dragon Martial Hall in Luoyang. A flashback shows Yang Ilcheong's failed, discreet attempts to court Yun Seo a year and a half ago. Jin Muang clucks his tongue in disgust, clearly unimpressed by the man's history. He erupts in frustration, demanding to know the timing of Wei Myung-shin's employment as a bodyguard. Nanyang coolly explains that Yang Ilcheong himself requested Wei Myung-shin's employment and lectures Jin Muang on the political necessities of her business. With a fierce expression, she emphasizes that maintaining good relations with powerful sects is essential for her to operate. As Jin Muang concedes the point, Nanyang reveals her plan to use the naive Wei Myung-shin to gather intel on his master's movements, shocking Jin Muang. With a snap of her fan, Nanyang smiles, satisfied with her cunning strategy. She remarks on the unpredictability of human hearts and confirms that she is the only one who knows about the secret relationship. Now wearing his straw hat, Jin Muang accepts the briefing and asks if there are any other precautions he should take. Nanyang is caught off guard by his sudden change in attitude, her mouth falling open in surprise. Jin Muang smirks, cryptically stating that people change because he is no longer alone. Nanyang offers a final warning. The Flying Dragon Martial Hall is tied to the Sima family, albeit as a minor branch. Jin Muang turns to leave, confirming he will keep her warning in mind. As he walks away, Nanyang stops him, asking if he has already found a guide for his mission. She wonders who his guide could be, as the scene shifts to Jin Muang walking through the streets of Luoyang. Jin Muang internally reflects that simply proving the note is fake won't be enough to resolve the situation cleanly. He concludes that the ideal, though difficult, outcome is forcing both the loan shark to burn the note and the master to abandon his pursuit of Wun Sao. Jin Muang arrives at a tea house and orders a pot of oolong tea from an attendant. He decides that for now, his primary focus must be on proving the promissory note is a forgery. As a smiling attendant serves his tea, Jin Muang waits with a thoughtful expression. A woman with a black ponytail enters the tea house, and the attendant welcomes her. Jin Muang calmly pours a second cup of tea, anticipating his guest. With a sly grin, he notes that he just so happens to have an empty seat. The newly arrived woman, her face shadowed, returns his smirk with a confident one of her own. Now seated together, the woman notes that he saw through her disguise, to which Jin Muang retorts she should have worn a mask. The woman is revealed to be the bespectacled aide from before, now without her glasses, her identity finally clear. She smiles coolly, undeterred by his observation. She takes a sip of tea and questions his excessive confidence. Jin Muang smirks back, matching her verbal sparring with his own nonchalant sip of tea. For a brief moment, the woman seems flustered by their exchange, biting her lower lip. Jin Muang suggests they proceed to the inn, but she says there's something she must do first. She crosses her arms, stating she knew he had a plan the moment he left the Suyang pavilion. Jin Muang reveals his hand, telling the woman, Seal Ran, that he needs her information for his current request. Seal Ran bursts out laughing, declaring his request ridiculous because she's an incredibly busy woman. Leaning forward with a predatory grin, Jin Muang warns her that she will suffer a great loss if she refuses to help. Her demeanor shifts as she realizes he knows something, asking if he means the real reason she's been in Luoyang. Her eyes sharpen as she specifies the thing she has been searching for at the Songoke Pavilion. Jin Muang's confident smile widens as he takes another sip of tea, confirming he holds all the cards. Shock and embarrassment flash across Seal Ran's face as she realizes he knows her secret. Seal Ran regains her composure, sitting patiently with a slight smile. In a sudden display of power, Jin Muang sips his tea while using his energy to shatter Seal Ran's cup. The tea splashes across the table as her cup breaks in her hand. Seal Ran remarks he's grown rougher and presses her sword to his neck, suggesting a more direct way to get information. She holds her sword steady, smiling menacingly. A tense silence falls over the table as the two adversaries stare each other down. Jin Muang's smug reflection is visible in the spilled tea on the wooden table. Seal Ran confidently tells him he can't force her, prompting him to ask why not. She trails off with a simple because, clenching her fist, her resolve hardening. Jin Muang smirks, declaring with a flowery flourish that Seal Ran's feelings for him are unwavering, which earns him a disgusted ugh from her. Beefed. Seal Ran barely contains a burst of laughter at his absurd confidence. The tension breaks as she erupts in laughter, calling his performance a masterpiece, while Jin Muang asks if his little act worked. Wiping away a tear, Seal Ran admits he's the only man who can make her laugh, and that she'd forgotten his shameless charm. Her demeanor instantly shifts back to business as she leans in with a sly smile, asking how she can help him. Jin Muang smiles, preparing to brief her on the long story, and warning her not to fall asleep. The scene transitions to a beautiful sunset over the rooftops of Luoyang. Back in the tea house, Seal Ran confirms she knows of Yu Duxam, a famous underworld forger whose coveted skills were legendary in Luoyang. She recounts Yu Duxam's tragic past. An active forger until his family was murdered 7 years ago, he spiraled into alcoholism and eventually died from it. Jin Muang calculates that if the debt was from 4 years ago, Yu Duxam couldn't have been the forger and asks why not. Seal Ran explains that 5 years ago, Yu Duxam already had severe tremors from alcohol withdrawal, making him incapable of forging anything. When asked about other skilled forgers, Seal Ran confidently asserts that no one in the entire Henan province could match Yu Duxam's skill. Leaning back, Seal Ran tells Muang that there is, however, one way to find Yu Duxam's successor. She propositions him with a coy smile, offering the information in exchange for the clue about Songokru he possesses. Jin Muang calls her out for playing dirty, but she dismisses it as a fair trade of necessary information. Caught off guard, Seal Ran watches as Jin Muang tosses an item on the table, telling her it's a clue for her to think about. Seal Ran thoughtfully considers the clue he's given her, pondering its meaning. Jin Muang reminds her that exchange is a two-way street, prompting her to finally relent and reveal a new lead, a tomb raider named No Chiol. She explains that No Chiol was Yu Duxam's friend who cared for him until his death, leading Jin Muang to realize he's the key and ask where to find him. Seal Ran places one final condition on their deal. She'll lead him to No Chiol if he agrees to help her one more time. Pulling at her collar, Seal Ran complains that her male disguise is suffocating, and coyly asks for his help changing clothes. Jin Muang smirks, seeing through her ploy and easily agreeing to her request. The scene shifts to the rundown grounds of a compound at dusk. Inside the courtyard, several ragged beggars are gathered, mumbling and exhausted. From behind a crumbling brick wall, Jin Muang and Seal Ran watch the beggars. Now wearing his straw hat, Jin Muang identifies their location as the Luogan branch of the beggar sect. Seal Ran playfully leans against Jin Muang, teasingly asking if it isn't time he moved away. With a seductive smile, she whispers that he should stay, suggesting he likes the closeness. Jin Muang coolly dismisses her, stating that he's working and she shouldn't distract him. Seal Ran points out their target in the courtyard, confirming that's the person, and Jin Muang acknowledges it. She identifies the man as Bu Gan, the 8th rank of the beggars sect, prompting Jin Muang to question if he really knows where No Chiol is. A flashback shows 3 men as close friends, as Seal Ran explains that Yu Duxam, No Chiol, and Bu Gan grew up together and know each other best. Jin Muang puts the pieces together, realizing that catching Bu Gan will lead them to both No Chiol and answers about Yu Duxam. He expresses concern that dealing with a high-ranking member of the beggar sect could be troublesome, clarifying that catching him is easy, but making him talk will be difficult. Seal Ran offers to use her specialty of torture, but Jin Muang rejects the idea, doubting it would work against Bu Gan's loyalty to his friends. A sly smile crosses Jin Muang's face as he announces that he has a good idea. Bu Gan stumbles through the compound, groaning in discomfort. A split screen shows Bu Gan heading into the woods, juxtaposed with a memory of a dejected, shirtless man with a topknot. Bu Gan dashes deeper into the forest with surprising speed. His agile movements carry him swiftly through the trees, He stealthily hides behind a large bush, observing something from his hiding spot. Licking his lips, Byugan laments that if not for an urgent summons, the appetizing sight before him would already be in his stomach. He gleefully holds up a roasted leg of meat, laughing heartily. In a flash, Jin Muang appears and snatches the food right out of his hand, leaving Byugan stunned. Staring at Jin Muang's smirk, Byugan furiously demands to know who the hell he is. Jin Muang effortlessly lifts the struggling beggar by his collar. Byugan yells for him to get lost as Jin Muang casually throws him aside. Byugan immediately scrambles to his feet, trying to flee. Jin Muang watches him run with an impressed smile, acknowledging that his escape tactics are worthy of his rank in the beggar sect. Byugan desperately runs for his life, trying to escape through the woods. Still fleeing, Byugan wonders in a panic who his pursuer is and what he's trying to do. In a moment of dawning horror, Byugan realizes something is terribly wrong. Swish. A blur of leaves signals another person's rapid approach. Byugan scrambles back towards the relative safety of the beggar sect compound. With a flash of blue energy, Seolran descends from above, cutting off his escape. She intercepts the terrified Byugan, moving in for the capture. Whap! Seolran expertly snares Byugan with a thin, strong cord around his neck. Byugan chokes and claws at the cord as she pulls it tight. The cord whips taut with a sharp snap. Seolran strains, gritting her teeth as she pulls with all her might. In an impromptu tug-of-war, Seolran digs her heels in, struggling to restrain the powerful beggar. Byugan resists with brute force, beads of sweat flying as he fights against the constricting cord. Annoyed by his strength, Seolran calls him a boar-like brute who only has power. "I'm exhausted," she yells at Jin Muang, telling him to finish it. He calmly agrees. Jin Muang appears as a dark blur, joining the struggle and yanking the rope alongside her. He moves in close, grabbing the cords directly at Byugan's throat. With a final, decisive tug, Jin Muang wrenches the cords tight, overwhelming Byugan's resistance. Byugan lets out a final, pained scream as his eyes roll back. Standing over their captive, Jin Muang notes, "It was easy," while Seolran scoffs that beggars are always distracted by food. Seolran asks what's next, and Jin Muang grins, suggesting they take him somewhere spooky. Hey, Jin Muang reveals his plan: scare Byugan so badly that he runs away without even thinking. Seolran smirks confidently, declaring that she's an expert at that sort of thing. She points out a perfect isolated building nearby that they can use for their interrogation. Inside the building, Byugan is bound to a chair, slumped over and unconscious. He begins to stir, groaning weakly as he regains consciousness. A sudden, vicious kick sends the chair crashing down as Byugan is told to wake up. Byugan confronts his shadowy captors, demanding to know who they are, but Jin Muang informs him that they will be asking the questions now. Jin Muang threatens to start breaking bones to loosen his tongue, causing Byugan to gasp in terror. Overwhelmed by fear, Byugan desperately cries for somebody to help him. The scene shifts to a serene, moonlit view of Luoyang at night. Having seemingly escaped, Byugan flees frantically through the dark city streets. Gasping for breath, the bruised and battered beggar curses his crazy captors. Jin Muang suddenly appears and slams him to the ground as Byugan shouts about being beaten like a dog. Seolran puts her foot on his head, and he continues his tirade, calling them two madmen for taking turns. Lying on the ground, Byugan reflects that if he hadn't managed to untie the rope, it would have been his funeral. From a rooftop, Byugan hurls insults at the night sky, screaming that the damned bastards will be punished by heaven. Watching from afar, Jin Muang remarks that if punishment was coming, it would have arrived a long time ago. Jin Muang reveals his plan worked, predicting Byugan would run to Nochul instead of his sect, and thanks Seolran. Seolran asks why he's thanking her, and he explains that only Byugan, as a close friend, knows Nochul's hidden location. Curious, she asks how he knew that, and he reminds her that she investigated Yu Doksam's associates. Seolran smirks, admitting that's true and asking him to get to the point. Jin Muang logically points out that if the beggar's sect knew Nochul's location, she would have already had that information. Seolran confidently refutes him, stating that her inability to find the info means the 9 Nether Mystics have already thoroughly analyzed all beggar sect intelligence. A flashback reveals an angry thought, a demand to find the damn no-chiel who robbed an ancestor's grave 10 years ago. Jin Muang explains his reasoning. With a powerful group targeting no-chiel, it's predictable Bu Gan would seek him out directly rather than report it. Seolren tells Muang to watch where Bu Gan is going, and he reacts with surprise as he spots the destination. Their quarry, Bu Gan, arrives at the entrance of the Flying Dragon Martial Hall. Jin Muang smirks, noting that, of all the places, he went to the Flying Dragon Martial Hall, and things are getting interesting. Seolren begins to walk away, telling Jin Muang he can handle it alone from here, prompting him to ask if she's leaving. Jin Muang thanks her for the help, and she stops, looking back with a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Jin Muang and Seolren stand together, gazing up at the full moon. Seolren turns away slightly, reminding him that their work isn't done yet. Jin Muang cheerfully suggests they meet again after the job is finished, while Seolren asks if she should visit him at the Suhyang Pavilion to find him. An intimidating image of a stern, red-eyed woman appears as both Jin Muang and Seolren look flustered by the thought of the pavilion. With a cheerful wave and a promise to see him next time, Seolren leaps from the rooftop into the night. Jin Muang watches her go with a knowing smirk. Adjusting his hat, Jin Muang says it's time for him to be on his way as well. Wham! A burst of energy signifies his departure. Whoosh! The scene rapidly pans over the moonlit rooftops of the city. The view closes in on the imposing front gate of the Flying Dragon Martial Hall, flanked by 2 guards. The 2 guards stand stoically, unaware of the approaching presence. A wisp of dark energy materializes behind the unsuspecting guards. The energy swirls around Jin Muang as he moves past the guards, completely unnoticed. He activates his Death God stealth technique, becoming a shadowy form. As a stream of blue and purple energy, he slips past the guards and through the main gate. Now inside, Jin Muang's shadowy form notes that the beggar's terrible smell makes him easier to track. The compound is heavily guarded, with men patrolling the wide courtyard. Jin Muang silently leaps across the tiled roofs, his dark energy trailing behind him. Peeking through a window, he spots Bu Gan and another man, confirming his target's location. The man with a short haircut asks Bu Gan why he's there, assuming it's for food, but Bu Gan angrily retorts he risked his life to warn him that dangerous people are after him. The man, now named No-chiel, asks with sudden seriousness if it's true someone is pursuing him. Bu Gan confirms their pursuer is an incredibly skilled master, and warns No-chiel that the descendants of a family whose grave he robbed 10 years ago are out for revenge. No-chiel dismisses Bu Gan's concerns, calling him a blockhead and a scoundrel who only steals from him. Listening from outside, Jin Muang grows annoyed as No-chiel complains about Bu Gan's timing, while Bu Gan argues about how much he has taken. Jin Muang wonders irritably how much longer he has to listen to the 2 idiots arguing. He briefly considers just barging in and beating them both up to make them talk. Jin Muang is startled when Bu Gan sighs and changes the subject, asking how Duke Sam's kid is doing. Ugh. Jin Muang groans in frustration, tired of listening to the idiots argue and tempted to just beat the information out of them. Realizing this is an unexpected discovery, Jin Muang listens as No-chiel tells Bu Gan there's nothing to worry about. Bu Gan expresses his concern over leaving a young girl in a martial arts hall, but No-chiel dismisses it, saying that's why he is there. No-chiel explains that the hall is an affiliate of the Blue Sky Saga Sa family, questioning if their leader, Yang Guanju, would let anything happen to a disciple. He reveals that Yang Guanju doesn't know Hong Ah is Deok Sam's daughter, and she's under his care, finally convincing Bu Gan to trust him. Bu Gan clenches his fist, vowing that they must protect Hong Ah until they get revenge on the one who killed his sister-in-law and ruined Deok Sam. No-chiel asks if Jung Hyo has found any leads on the culprit, causing the eavesdropping Jin Muang to react in shock at the name Jin Jung Hyo. Bu Gan furiously grabs No-chiel, telling him to never mention that name again. As Bu Gan leaves, he warns No-chiel to stay vigilant, and No-chiel tells him to be careful as well. Jin Muang reflects that baiting his targets has revealed a wealth of unexpected information. His shadowy form moves away from the building as the guards remain unaware. Inside, No-chiel walks down a quiet, lamplit hallway. Creak, he opens a door and softly asks if Hong Ah is asleep. A young woman, Hong Ah, sits up in bed and asks her uncle why he is there so late. From the shadows, Jin Muang observes Hong Ah, noting her beauty and understanding why Bu Gan was so worried. No-chiel tells Hong he was just checking on her, and she reassures him that she is fine. Having gathered the necessary information, Jin Muang decides it is time to proceed to the next step of his plan. The scene transitions to a magnificent multi-storied pagoda under a full moon, surrounded by blossoming trees. Inside a grand hall, guests celebrate as couples dance. The camera pans to a tranquil, private pavilion surrounded by a pond and blooming lotus flowers. Within a quiet room, Hong Ah is sound asleep. Suddenly, a masked ninja silently appears in her room. The ninja dismisses kidnapping a child as a simple task and tells the sleeping Hong Ah to rest for a while. In Hong Ah's room, a masked ninja stands over her sleeping form, wondering how his pursuers managed to track him down. A woman with glowing eyes appears behind her fan, coldly remarking that a rat has managed to sneak into her pavilion. With a cry of, "No hard feelings!" the ninja lunges forward to attack. As he declares that witnesses can't be left alive, the woman, Nan Yang, coolly challenges him with a dismissive, "Oh, really?" The ninja's blade is effortlessly blocked by Nan Yang's fan. Pushing him back, Nan Yang states that she is filled with personal grievances, her eyes flashing with anger. A clang rings out as the ninja is stunned by the unexpected force of her block. Staggering backward, the ninja is shocked by her incredible martial skills. Nan Yang glares fiercely, her stance ready for the next move. The commotion wakes Hong Ah, who groggily rubs her eyes and sits up, questioning the noise. Outside, two other masked men are alerted by the sudden scream. Looking on with concern, one ninja reports that something went wrong and their operative Black Rat has failed. A figure descends gracefully from the rooftops behind them. It's Jin Muang, who sizes up the situation with a curious, Back inside, Nan Yang stands protectively over a terrified Hong Ah amidst the wreckage of the room. The two backup ninjas appear, surrounding the woman and the girl. One of the ninjas warns his partner to be careful, revealing that the woman killed Black Rat and is no ordinary fighter. Jin Muang appears from the shadows behind them, calmly agreeing that Nan Yang is indeed no ordinary woman. Whirling around, the two ninjas stare in shock at Jin Muang's sudden appearance. As his energy flares, Jin Muang tells Nan Yang to make sure So-So doesn't see what's about to happen. A complex, glowing red formation erupts from his power. The two ninjas are instantly ensnared by glowing red lines, their bodies frozen in place. Jin Muang places his hand on the hilt of his sword, his expression grim. In a flash, he draws his blade. A spray of blood marks the swift, fatal end of the two assassins. As Jin Muang sheaths his sword, he compliments Nan Yang's skills, and she retorts that he's still got it too. Hong Ah, now safe, looks up at Jin Muang and calls him uncle. Nan Yang asks why he didn't leave one alive to trace, but Jin Muang gently pats Hong Ah's head, saying he couldn't afford to be careless. He reaffirms his decision, stating he couldn't risk anything happening to So-So, who looks up at him gratefully. Nan Yang smirks at him, teasingly calling him a doting guardian. She reminds him that he owes her and will owe her more soon, while he jokingly asks for pity as a single father trying to get by. Nan Yang says she'll collect her debt by hearing exactly how he's handling Daryo's request, admitting her curiosity. As she walks away, Jin Muang confidently tells her to leave it to Jin's guards. The scene shifts to another grand pavilion under the full moon. A man with a bloody hand learns that Hao Mil Moon's Black Rat has failed, rendering the assassin's name meaningless. He muses that because the Black Rat didn't possess his property, the girl's powers couldn't be used to locate him. He clenches his fist in fury, cursing the damned Jin clan bastards and his decision to interfere in the Central Plains. With a crack, he slams his bowl down in frustration. The man's shadowy form seethes with sinister intent. A malicious grin spreads across his face as he hatches a plan to drive a wedge between So-So and the Jin clan. Elsewhere, Jin Muang kneels on a rooftop, examining the dagger of a fallen foe. He gazes at the weapon, deciding it's time to test So-So's abilities. He looks towards So-So, preparing to give her instructions. The scene transitions to a bright, sunny day at a beautiful building surrounded by cherry blossoms. The next morning, Nan Yang gently tends to So-So's hair. A long-haired man enters the room, asking So-So if she slept. She greets him as Uncle Mu Ang. Mu Ang observes that So-So looks tired, and she thanks him for saving her, but he directs her gratitude to Nan Yang, who protests being called Madam. Mu Ang presents the dagger from the kidnapper, telling Soso that there is something she needs to do. He asks her to use her ability to read the memories of the one who held the weapon, and she reluctantly agrees. As Soso places her hands on the dagger, a brilliant blue energy erupts from her body. Her eyes widen in shock, glowing with the power coursing through her. The energy reveals visions of the assassins who attacked her, their shadowy forms captured in her mind. Soso's vision continues, showing the assassins approaching the building, and Muang watching her from afar. Ugh! Soso cries out in pain and collapses, as Muang shouts her name in alarm. Nanyang worries if the girl will be alright, but Muang reassures her that Soso is simply exhausted. Breathing heavily, Soso lies in bed as Muang leans in and asks what she saw. Drained, Soso reveals she saw the house secret sect and mentions another person. She trails off, wincing in pain as she tries to recall the memory of that person. Muang watches over her with a grim and concerned expression, understanding the toll this has taken. Nanyang glares at him, confirming his suspicion that this is what has been affecting Soso's health. She angrily questions why he put Soso through this ordeal if he already knew the risk. Muang gently covers the sleeping Soso, explaining that he needed to be certain. He adds that identifying their enemies was necessary to plan their response accordingly. Nanyang asks if he intends to storm the house secret sect, but he declines, saying they will come to him as long as he has Soso. Muang vows with cold determination that when they do come for her, they will pay the price. Nanyang sighs in frustration, complaining that when he's gone, she's the one left to deal with him. Muang teases her, saying the head of Suhyang Pavilion wouldn't abandon a child, prompting her to demand a salary. He playfully promises to work hard for it, and she retorts that's why she hired him in the first place. His demeanor shifting back to serious, Muang announces it's time to wrap up his mission. He tosses a package to Nanyang, telling her to feed its contents to Soso. Catching the packet, Nanyang curiously asks if it's medicine. Muang smirks, boasting that it's an expensive remedy that cost most of the mission's deposit. Nyang looks down at the medicine with a sorrowful expression, feeling pity for the girl. Nanyang thinks kindness would be more effective, while Muang reflects that it's hard for someone to change all at once. The scene shifts to a man with a reddish-brown ponytail sitting patiently at a table. Muang approaches, and the man greets him as Escort Wei. Escort Wei asks what brings Muang to see him, and Muang states he has a question. Muang asks about the progress of Wei's investigation, but Wei admits he has nothing concrete to report yet. Cutting to the chase, Muang asks about a new disciple of Yang Guanju named Hong Ah, surprising Wei. Wei wonders how he knew about her, but Muang dismisses it, demanding to know everything about the girl. Wei reveals her name is No Yonhong. She is 17, and her wandering father, No Guang, left her at the school 7 years ago. As they walk, Wei explains that Hong A's beautiful heart has won the affection of the master and mistress. A flashback shows a smiling girl, as narration explains that she became the master's unnamed disciple 3 months ago. Back in the present, Muang thanks Wei for the information, but Wei presses him on his interest in Hong A. After Wei's nervous agreement, Muang internally notes that Wei's weak spirit makes him unsuited for the dangerous life of the Jianghu. Muang, now in a wide-brimmed hat, approaches a bald man named Seokjo to request his help. Seokjo is utterly flabbergasted by the request, shouting if Muang has gone mad. Muang offers a simple, well-paying job, noting the man's struggling shop, but Seokjo tells him to get lost. The offer of 10 silver coins for a simple task instantly grabs the greedy man's attention. Seokjo demands the payment up front, earning a jab from Muang for being a miserly little Scrooge. Holding the pouch of coins, Seokjo suspiciously asks what the simple task is. With a sly grin, Muang explains he just needs to slip some information to certain people. The scene shifts to the bustling entrance of the Jin Manor at night. A weeping man leaves the manor, a place where people are said to enter cheerfully but leave in tears. Muang stands confidently at the entrance, hinting at the manor's true nature. The manor's secret is revealed. It's an illegal gambling den. Inside, men gamble with dice, a winner celebrating his victory with a triumphant shout. Nearby, another group plays cards, surrounded by an eager crowd of onlookers. Amidst the cheers, a fight breaks out between 2 furious gamblers, adding to the den's chaos. At the gambling den, a woman in a red dress greets Muang, asking if he's new. The hostess welcomes the dear guest, and Muang states he'll wager 10 silver coins on a dice game. Impressed, she notes his experience and agrees to lead him to the intermediate table. As they walk, Muang and the hostess pass a table where two masked men are laughing heartily. A man in fine clothes gleefully announces his victory over Commissioner Gyeong as Muang watches from the sidelines. The defeated commissioner sighs, lamenting that all the luck belongs to Hero Yang. Muang scoffs at a hero gambling in a seedy den, then pulls the startled hostess toward another table he finds more interesting. An overhead view shows a tense dice game in progress. Muang and the hostess approach a table where a man with a headband thoughtfully considers his next move. The man, Yang Ilcheong's eldest son Yang Han-sang, looks up with a curious, smirking. Muang internally notes that his target has taken the bait and asks to join the game. From a wider angle, Muang politely requests to join the game as the hostess stands beside him. Yang Han-sang welcomes the new participant, and Muang thanks him before taking a seat. Muang sits down at the high-stakes table, joining the other gamblers. Tapping the table, Yang Han-sang asks Muang how much he's willing to stake to begin. Claiming it's his first time, Muang says he'll start lightly before slamming down a huge stack of money, shocking the others. Yang Han-sang smiles, telling Muang he likes his great ambition. Introducing himself as Jin Dayop, Muang thinks how luring the man here is all part of his plan. Muang recalls paying Xiaoqiu to spread rumors of a huge game at Jinggaizhang to ensure his target would hear. His thoughts reveal he learned from a woman named Seolin about Yang Hansang's gambling addiction. The flashback continues, focusing on the dice that seal the man's fate. Muang declares that Yang Hansang is merely bait to catch a much bigger fish, slamming his dice cup down. With a sinister grin, he thinks about how the big fish will surely bite his hook. The other players at the table, including Yang Han-sang, look on in stunned silence. The atmosphere at the table is thick with tension as the high-stakes game begins. A nervous woman abruptly declares she's backing out of the game. The massive pile of winnings on the table illustrates the enormous stakes of the game. Another gambler quickly folds, announcing he'll stop here. Excited by the scale of the game, other players eagerly raise their own stakes to join the two great figures. The three remaining opponents, including Yang Han-sang, stare intently at each other. Muang reflects on how the great masters are enjoying themselves, heating up the atmosphere. The high-stakes game continues under the watchful eyes of the crowd. With a flash in his eye, Muang looks up from his winnings and asks his opponent, "What do you think?" The three remaining players are visibly stunned and intimidated by the massive pile of money. Muang taunts a hesitant Yang Han-sang, offering to let him take the lead. Enraged, Yang Han-sang shouts that he was getting bored and slams his money down, ready to make the game big. A player carefully stacks his large wager on the table. The onlookers watch the intense gambling match with bated breath. The crowd grows larger and more animated as the game escalates. Clack, clack. Yang Han-sang begins shaking the dice cup with intense focus. He shakes the cup with increasing speed and ferocity. Muang watches his opponent's frantic shaking with a calm, unreadable expression. Thud. Yang Han-sang slams the dice cup down on the table with force. Whoosh! The dice tumble out from under the cup. The crowd roars with excitement, congratulating Yang Han-sang on his amazing play. The results are revealed, an 8, a 10, and a 9. With a confident smile, Muang picks up his cup and asks if it's his turn now. Muang begins to shake his dice as his two opponents watch with intense apprehension. A drop of sweat falls from Yang Han-sang's brow as he waits for Muang's roll. Thwack. Muang decisively slams his cup down, his face concealed by shadow. With a confident grin, Muang taunts his opponent as he prepares to reveal his dice, saying, "I'm checking now." Yang Han-sang stares in utter disbelief, his face a mask of shock as he sees the result. The dice are revealed, 2 sixes, a perfect and seemingly impossible roll of 12. The crowd erupts in astonishment, with onlookers shouting that it must be a miracle, as they've never seen a 12 before. Muang smugly asks Yang Han-sang if his luck was just better, but the enraged man accuses him of cheating, which Muang casually denies. The hostess in the red dress steps forward, addressing Muang by an alias and announcing that it's time to close the gambling den for the day. Flanked by intimidating guards, the nervous hostess quietly agrees that closing is fine. A bouncer with goggles shouts the business is over and forcefully tells all the patrons to get out. The gambling hall empties, leaving only Muang, Yang Han-sang, and his cronies surrounded by the den's guards. Furious, Yang Han-sang reveals his identity as the iron-piercing spear of the martial world, warning Muang he's messed with the wrong person. Muang remarks on the impressive nickname, correctly guessing his lineage from the Flying Dragon Spear clan, and chastising him for resorting to force after losing. Enraged, Yang Hansong lunges forward, shouting that Muang is rushing his own death. Muang coldly threatens to pull out Yang Hansong's tongue for all his lies. With a confident smirk, Muang retorts that neither his hand nor his tongue will be taken. Yang Hansong and his bald accomplice lunge at Muang in a swift, coordinated attack. Ugh! The two attackers recoil in pain, clutching their wrists as Muang, with glowing red eyes, thinks he won't give his winnings to a scoundrel. A large hand swings toward Yang Hansong, who raises his weapon defensively. Yang Hansong and his two men stand ready as he holds up a hand to halt the confrontation. Muang calmly taunts the iron-piercing spear, asking what his next move will be. Sweating, Yang Hansong realizes, with dawning horror, that his opponent is no mere gambler. A man in elegant yellow robes arrives with his entourage, observing that an interesting game is unfolding. The newcomer's face breaks into a sly, knowing grin. The man in yellow greets Muang by the name Jin Junghyo, stating that he's been waiting for him. The man, revealed to be the master of Jin Manor, correctly deduces that Muang's true target was never Yang Hansong, but him. As Yang Hansong continues to accuse Muang of cheating, the master of the manor intervenes, telling them both to calm down. The master declares there's no point in arguing and proposes they settle the dispute with a fair game. Spreading his arms wide, the master suggests that if he participates, it will ensure a game without any cheating. Muang internally notes that with the master of Jin Manor joining, the game will be exceptionally large and fair, just as he planned. Yang Hansong eagerly agrees to the new game, slamming his hand on the table in determination. Muang challenges the master, stating a true gambler wouldn't refuse to raise the stakes, and that he will use this game to prove his innocence. The master of the manor gives a serene, confident smile, silently accepting the challenge. With a new high-stakes game underway, Muang goes all in, prompting a nervous Yang Hansong to question his confidence. Short on cash, Yang Hansong asks Great Hero Jin, the manor's master, for a loan via a promissory note, which the master happily grants. Muang interrupts, agreeing to accept promissory notes only if they are from one of the three major financial institutions. The master conveniently reveals that his manor only deals in notes from Tai-Fi Financial Hall, and that he will also use them for his wager. Placing 2 dice atop his cup, Muang declares it a fitting amount for the final game. The 3 tense gamblers face off as the master of the manor asks who will begin the final round. The hostess presents a tray with the massive winnings from the previous game, including the valuable promissory note. After the game, Muang bids farewell to the master and Yang Hansong, commenting that it was an enjoyable match. The hostess worriedly asks the master if it's safe to let Muang leave, but he notes the man's martial arts skill would make a confrontation troublesome. The master reassures Yang Hansong that Muang only leaves with 50 silver taels, but grows concerned about the promissory note. Yang Hansong vows to handle it personally. Clenching his fist, the master of Jin Manor vows that the man who insulted him cannot be allowed to live. The scene shifts to the grand exterior of the Tai-Fi Financial Hall. Inside, a woman in a purple dress is stunned as she examines a promissory note issued by Jin Manor. The woman exclaims that the note is for an enormous sum, but Muang coolly informs her that it's all counterfeit anyway. Shocked, the woman questions how it could be counterfeit, stating she had it verified by Siak Cho. The woman argues that the seal is a perfect match, but Muang asks if such a precise forgery reminds her of a certain someone. Muang implies that the forger of the Gok Marshall family's seal is the same person who created this note. With a look of grim satisfaction, Muang decides it's time to wrap things up. The woman looks at him with deep concern, questioning if this elaborate scheme was truly necessary and wondering if her request was unreasonable. Muang smugly teases Madame Liu, asking if her soft-hearted words mean she's worried, causing her to flusteredly deny it. Sighing, Madame Liu sits down, stating that the next course of action is clear. Muang stands confidently, confirming that everything is set and it's time to finish the plan. As he walks away, Madame Liu asks if he's heading to Tai-Fi Financial Hall, but he replies, that would be boring. With a determined smirk, Mu Ang reveals his true destination is the Flying Dragon Martial Hall. The scene shifts to a quiet room where a bald, bearded man named Seok Cho sips tea. Seok Cho stares ahead with a grim and serious expression. His face is cast in shadow, highlighting his intense and determined gaze. Holding an envelope, Seok Cho wonders why delivering it requires that person. Mu Ang explains from across the room that it's all part of a larger plan and he's counting on him. Turning back, Mu Ang decides to share some information he thinks Seok Cho would want to know. Mu Ang reveals that Madame Wu of Song Ok Pavilion, from a previous murder case, has recently gone missing, causing a white-haired elder to look visibly stressed in a flashback. Seok Cho calmly thanks him for the information as Mu Ang departs. Taking a sip of tea, Seok Cho muses that Mu Ang either already knows or is expecting that a man named Wu Chang-an has gone missing. Thud. He sets his cup down, deciding it's not his business, and resolves to simply finish his assigned job quickly. A messenger arrives, stating someone asked him to deliver a letter, and Seok Cho asks who has business with him. The letter is delivered into the hands of a man with long black hair wearing blue robes. The swordsman in blue takes the letter as Seok Cho watches from his table. Seok Cho takes a sip of tea, warning the man that he's done his part, but Nan Rang won't go easy on him if he causes problems. A peaceful view of a leafy tree against a bright sky signals a change of scene. Mu Ang, now wearing a wide-brimmed hat, stands alone on a cobblestone street. He smirks, musing that while he didn't lie, he wonders if begging for forgiveness will be enough if Nanyang finds out the truth. His determined eyes glint from beneath the brim of his hat. A group led by Yang Hansang confronts Mu Ang, telling him he saved them a trip to Suhayang Pavilion by coming to them. An overhead view shows the group of armed thugs surrounding Mu Ang. Mu Ang smiles, stating that's exactly what he was going to say, and he can't thank them enough for following his plan. Yang Hansang and his men confront Mu Ang, with one of them thanking him for saving them a trip to Suyangli. A swordsman in blue robes arrives at a guarded entrance, greeted by bowing guards. A man with a goatee welcomes the swordsman as brother-in-law, expressing his surprise at the sudden visit. Smiling slightly, the swordsman explains he's in Luoyang to investigate the Songgokru incident. He adds that, while here, he decided to visit his brother-in-law's military office. The man with the goatee formally welcomes his brother-in-law to the Flying Dragon martial art, apologizing for being unprepared. While his brother-in-law laments not being able to provide a grander welcome, the swordsman glances around the courtyard. The man with the goatee notices his distraction and asks if he's looking for something. The swordsman asks if a rude, disrespectful scoundrel who doesn't care for manners was there. Back in the street, Mu Ang stands calmly before Yang Hansang, Master Jin, and their assembled thugs. Mu Ang greets Elder Yang and Master Jin, remarking that it seems they were all thinking the same thing. Yang Hansang and Master Jin are left stunned and confused by his confident greeting. Mu Ang nonchalantly asks if they were planning to start a commotion and if he can join in. A man with a headband laughs hysterically, mocking Mu Ang's cluelessness about the world, leaving Mu Ang puzzled. The man's expression turns sinister as he demands Mu Ang hand over the token from the Taiwan money house to survive. The thugs surge forward in a blur of motion. Mu Ang calmly watches as his opponents, led by Yang Hansang and Master Jin, prepare to attack. Master Jin calls Mu Ang naive, declaring that despicable things are common in the martial world as he orders his men to strike. A thug with a topknot lunges forward, his face contorted with aggressive intent. The swordsman leaps toward Mu Ang, his shadow falling over his still opponent. Klang Mu Ang effortlessly parries the descending sword. In a flurry of motion, Mu Ang dodges and weaves through his attackers, who grunt in pain as he strikes them. His eyes glowing red, Mu Ang spins into a powerful counterattack. Bang! With a single devastating impact, Mu Ang sends the entire group of thugs flying. Tak Mu Ang swiftly grabs a thug's face, his expression grimly determined, while the man stares in shock. As the thugs fall defeated around him, the man with the goatee stands with open arms, seemingly unfazed by the chaos. Leaping away with incredible agility, Mu Ang thinks that, while he may be naive, he's very confident in his footwork as he easily evades his pursuers. A man seethes with rage, his teeth clenched in utter frustration as he thinks that, furious, Master Jin orders his men to catch the damned bastard as Mu Ang flees into the distance. With a look of intense focus, Mu Ang continues his escape. Mu Ang gracefully vaults over a high wall, landing perfectly as his pursuers are left behind. Watching him escape, a thug yells in alarm that the crazy bastard is heading for the Flying Dragon Martial Arts Hall, shocking Yang Hansang and Master Jin. Panicked, Yang Hansang screams at his men to catch Muang before his father finds out. Now inside the hall's courtyard, Muang runs, wondering where his target is and expecting a violent confrontation. He stops dead in his tracks, alerted by a sudden presence. The swordsman in blue robes appears, cheerfully calling out that he's found him, as the man with the goatee cowers in the foreground. The swordsman in blue and the man with the goatee look on as they are joined by an unexpected guest. Waving with a huge grin, Muang cheerfully introduces himself. Yang Hansang stares in utter disbelief and horror at the unfolding scene. As Muang lands, two guards draw their swords, while one of Yang Hansang's men demands to know who this intruder is. Muang theatrically shouts for everyone to stop. A strange energy seems to crackle around the two confused guards. Muang smirks, noting his opponent's momentum seems to have grown even stronger. He darts past the guards, closing the distance to the swordsman in blue. Muang expresses his relief, telling the swordsman he was worried he wouldn't show up. The swordsman in blue coldly remarks that Muang's shameless attitude hasn't changed at all. The man with the goatee asks his brother-in-law if he knows this man, and the swordsman replies that they have a brief past connection. Muang cheekily questions the brief connection, earning a furious glare from the swordsman who tells him to shut up. As Yang Hansang and Master Jin arrive, one of their men wonders what's happening and why Muang is acting so familiar with his uncle. The swordsman in blue draws his blade, threatening to cut Muang's throat if he doesn't quiet down. The man with the goatee quickly intervenes, asking his brother-in-law to calm down, to which the swordsman offers an apology. The man with the goatee internally concludes that whatever is happening, his foolish son is somehow involved. He internally laments that he can't just kill Muang to silence him, since his brother-in-law has a connection to the man. Muang stands with his hands on his hips, innocently asking what all the commotion is about. Bowing respectfully, Muang introduces himself as a bodyguard from Suhyang Pavilion and flatters the man with the goatee on his noble reputation. He apologizes for trespassing, but insists he had no other choice. As Muang speaks, Yang Hansang and Master Jin watch nervously from the gate. With his eyes glowing, Muang gravely accuses Yang Hansang of conspiring with the gambling den master, Jin Jonghyo. He continues, declaring Yang Hansang guilty of distributing counterfeit promissory notes throughout Luoyang. The man with the goatee reels back in complete shock at the accusations. He clutches his head, cursing his foolish son for getting caught in dealings with Jin Jonghyo. A narrator explains the Flying Dragon Martial Arts Hall is an insignificant sect that amassed wealth through corrupt means. Their wealth came from secretly backing Jin Jonghyo's loan sharking and gambling businesses in exchange for bribes. The man with the goatee knows the Sima clan's main family would never tolerate such illegal activities. He fears his brother-in-law will report everything to the main family's disciplinary committee if he discovers the truth. Desperate, he tries to divert the situation, apologizing for the commotion and inviting his brother-in-law inside. The swordsman in blue vouches for Muang, stating that while he may be trash, he doesn't speak falsehoods. Addressing the swordsman as Hui, Muang is told to continue, and he agrees to explain everything in detail. Muang presents a stack of promissory notes as evidence. He explains that an expert appraiser confirmed the notes were part of a counterfeit ring, with a flashback showing the nervous culprits. Putting on a tearful performance, Muang claims he was ambushed while trying to appeal his innocence, forcing him to flee for his life over the wall. Hui scoffs internally at the ridiculous idea of Muang being scared, then turns to the man with the goatee and asks if the story is true. The man with the goatee panics, desperately denying the accusations and pleading to be believed. Unmoved, Hui coldly asks his nephew Yang Hansang why he was with those men, leaving the young man speechless. The man with the goatee questions Yang Hansang, surprised by his close ties with Master Jin, and asks if the story is true. Master Jin realizes with horror that he's being set up to take all the blame for the scheme. Thud. Master Jin throws himself onto the ground, loudly confessing to the Lord Magistrate that greed made him do it all. Thump. Blood splatters as Master Jin violently slams his forehead against the stone courtyard. Master Jin continues his desperate performance, screaming that the Lord Magistrate is innocent and pleading to take all the blame himself. Muang reveals that his true target isn't Master Jin or Yang Hansang. His eyes narrow as he declares that the real target is the Yang Magistrate himself. Onlookers murmur as Master Jin continues to grovel before the group in the courtyard. The crowd whispers in confusion, wondering what is happening and who the prostrating man is. More spectators gather, questioning the unfolding drama. The man with the goatee feels relieved, thinking he can pin everything on Jin Jingyo, while Muang notes Master Jin's willing confession. The man with the goatee declares that as head of the hall and as a father, he will defer to the opinion of the victim, Guard Jin. The swordsman in blue thinks that his brother-in-law probably assumes Muang only caused this commotion to get his money back. Muang smirks, outwardly admiring the Lord Magistrate's handling of the matter, while inwardly questioning Jin Muang's true goal. Muang states that compensation and a promise it won't be repeated is enough, and the Lord Magistrate agrees to return his silver. With glowing eyes, Muang adds another condition. Both Master Jin and young Master Yang must have their wrists cut off. Master Jin, the man with the goatee, and the swordsman in blue all react with varying degrees of shock and severity. Master Jin leaps to his feet, enraged and demanding to know who this madman is to talk about cutting off wrists. A powerful aura erupts from Muang as he shouts that he hasn't finished speaking yet. Master Jin and his men stare in stunned silence at Muang's sudden outburst. The swordsman in blue watches with his arms crossed, remarking that Muang's boldness hasn't changed. Muang addresses the kneeling Master Jin, amending his demand to spare young Master Yang out of respect for the magistrate, but adding a third condition. He holds up a note, explaining that the forgery is so skilled that victims will continue to suffer as long as the forger is free. Therefore, Muang declares, with fierce determination, he must also take the wrist of the forger. Muang stands dramatically, his point made clear to the stunned onlookers. The man with the goatee finds the demands excessive and points out that the forger isn't even present. Muang smirks, confidently stating that fortunately, the forger is right there in the Flying Dragon Martial Arts Hall. The man with the goatee, Master Jin, and a young woman with black hair react with wide-eyed shock. Muang points to a group across the courtyard, identifying the forger as the youngest disciple, No Yonhong. He then corrects himself, revealing her true identity as Yu Yonhong, daughter of the master forger, Yu Deoksum. Muang explains his reasoning. Since Yu Deoksum had no disciples, his forgery skills could only have been passed down to his own flesh and blood. A sepia-toned flashback shows Yu Yonhong standing with a man with short, dark hair. The flashback reveals she was the one who forged the promissory notes and the seal of the Goximu family. Panicked, Yu Yonhong stammers denials as the crowd looks on. Muang walks towards her, stating that denial is useless and she must face the consequences of her crime. No Yu Yonhong whispers desperately, "I had no choice," as she backs away. Wham! Suddenly the man with short dark hair grabs her arm to pull her away. He shouts, "Let's run, Hong!" as he yanks her into a desperate escape attempt. The man, her uncle, vows to protect her since he couldn't save her parents, urging her to escape to Bugan. Touched and terrified, Yu Yonhong looks back at her uncle as they flee. Muang scratches his head, annoyed at how troublesome the situation has become. His eyes flare with golden light as he prepares to move. Whoosh! The swordsman in blue instantly appears before Muang, his drawn sword blocking the path forward. Muang looks on in surprise at the sudden intervention. A brilliant flash of energy fills the courtyard as the two forces are about to collide. The swordsman in blue stands firm, his blade held ready to stop Muang's advance. With the swordsman holding Muang at bay, Yu Yonhong and her uncle continue their escape in the background. An overhead view shows the swordsman intercepting Muang, creating an opening for the duo to flee. Her uncle asks if running admits her guilt, while the swordsman orders Yu Yonhong to return and await judgment. Yu Yonhong and her uncle stare back in speechless horror, their escape thwarted. Her uncle reassures a younger Yu Yonhong, promising that no matter what happens, he will protect her. Muang expresses his gratitude to Hui, explaining he avoided a fight so the truth could be revealed without bloodshed in his brother-in-law's house. Hui glares menacingly, warning Muang that if he has made false accusations, he will take his hands first. The man with the goatee agrees to hear Guardian out, privately fuming that he can't just kill him because of his brother-in-law. The key players, a nervous Master Jin, a defiant Yu Yonhong and her uncle, and the opposing Muang and Hui, stand ready for the testimony. Muang begins his tale, explaining he was conducting an investigation at a client's request. He reveals his client was being forced to repay a debt based on a forged promissory note. Mu-ang points an accusing finger, identifying Master Jin as the one who presented the fraudulent note. He explains to his client, a woman from the Suhyang Pavilion, that his goal was to expose the forger and prove the debt was unjust. Mu-ang's investigation led him to Yu Deok-sam, a renowned counterfeiter in Luoyang, with the skill for such a flawless forgery. He recounts how Yu Deok-sam died in despair years ago, but he tracked down a beggar named Bugon, a friend who knew the full story. Mu-ang identifies the uncle as No Chio, Yu Deok-sam's old friend, who has been hiding the master forger's secret child, No Yeonhong. With a dramatic flourish, he reveals her true name is Yu Yeonhong, stunning her with the revelation. Mu-ang confidently concludes that since her father had no disciples, only Yu Yeonhong could have inherited his counterfeiting skills. He lays out the entire scheme. Jin Jung-hyo used young hero Yang to commission counterfeit notes from Yu Yeonhong. Shock. The swordsman orders his men to search Yeonhong's room, and they immediately comply. The guards enter the young woman's quarters to conduct the search. Successive guard announces they found a box in her room containing counterfeiting tools and transaction records. The guard adds that promissory notes and seals were also inside, causing Yu Yeonhong to tremble with fear. The swordsman turns to the hallmaster and coldly asks if his martial arts hall was involved in Master Jin's crimes. The man with the goatee stammers, caught completely off guard by the direct question. He internally resolves that he must sever all ties with Master Jin to protect himself and his hall. Mu-ang smoothly suggests that to avoid inconvenience for everyone, they should wrap the matter up quickly. The hallmaster seethes, realizing Mu-ang is offering him an out by letting him frame Master Jin as the sole perpetrator. He asks what guard Jin wants, and Mu-ang repeats his demands. The silver must be returned and the mastermind's hands severed. The man with the goatee stares intensely, simmering with rage at the bold demands. Mu-ang, with his eyes shadowed, adds that there is one more thing. With glowing blue eyes, he states it would be uncomfortable to see the hallmaster professionally, subtly threatening his position. Enraged, the hallmaster erupts, shouting that this was all because of that woman from the start. The swordsman questions his brother-in-law's outburst, asking what he means about a woman. The hallmaster quickly retracts his statement, flustered and claiming it was nothing. Realizing he must accept Mu-ang's deal, he composes himself, blaming his outburst on getting too worked up. Chuck. The hallmaster formally agrees that settling the matter, as Mu-ang suggested, is the best path forward. Mu-ang smirks, knowing the man has no choice but to accept his terms. Master Jin frantically begs Hallmaster Yang for help, insisting he has been falsely accused. The hallmaster's face darkens as he glares, his decision now final and merciless. The swordsman announces that with the truth revealed, it is time to carry out the punishment. Master Jin desperately pleads with young hero Yang for help as the swordsman approaches. A blue blur streaks across the courtyard as the swordsman unleashes his attack. With a single brutal slash, the swordsman severs Master Jin's wrist as Yang Hanseng watches. Blood sprays as Master Jin howls in agony, while Hui remains impassive, his judgment delivered. Yu Yeonhong and her uncle look on in absolute shock, with Yu Yeonhong letting out a terrified gasp. The hallmaster protests that his brother-in-law went too far, but the swordsman retorts that they dragged the family's honor through the mud. He coldly states that he would have beheaded them, but will settle for a wrist out of respect. Yu Yeonhong's uncle screams in terror as he shields her, watching the swordsman turn to them next. The uncle desperately begs for forgiveness and pleads for Hong to be spared, lunging forward with a cry of pain. Thwack! The swordsman contemptuously kicks the uncle aside as Yu Yeonhong screams his name. The swordsman tells Yu Yeonhong she must pay the price for disgracing the family name, as he brings his sword down on her wrist. Crying, Yu Yeonhong stares in horror as the blade flashes towards her arm. Fwaa! A brilliant flash of light erupts at the moment of impact. Jin Mu-ang blocks the descending blade with his sheathed sword, protecting Yu Yeonhong and stunning the swordsman into silence. Tears stream down Yu Yeonhong's face as she stares in stunned disbelief, saved at the very last second. With a confident smirk, Mu-ang calmly tells the furious Hui that the punishment stops here.